What is going on, everybody? It is SCP Pig with a special guest. How's it
Hello.
going? What is up? How you doing?
I'm doing absolutely fabulously right now. I'm trying to figure out the best way to set up my camera so it's not chopping off my head here. But I probably should have. I got all of my lighting, everything set up. I probably should have figured out my angles before I started the camera. But it's all good. And hey, how about that? That looks okay.
I mean, you were color coordinated with this whole new setup and theme we got going here. Even
yeah,
the nice purple touch.
There you go.
All right, so before we get going here, let me I'm gonna get somebody to come in here just to make sure we don't have like an echo, just for a sound check real quick. And while we're waiting on somebody to do so, let me explain what's been going on. So we're back. This is a Tuesday night. Typically I'd be doing sort of a reaction night, low key, but we got some catch up to do, don't we?
We do. We sure do. We have been falling far, far behind. And I mean, by far behind, I mean a week, but that might as well be forever.
Yeah, that is a long time in SCP article posting land. So literally any other config site, maybe not the backrooms, other than the backrooms, any other config site, you walk away for a week, you'll come back, you'll be like, ooh, someone posted one article this week. Wow. There's a new comment. Yeah. No, at SCP, and it just so happened that last week was just a very interesting, very tough week. So not only was it the highest article post count, I think, on record so far, but thanks to everybody who's checking out the stream for the echoes. Appreciate it. Looks like we sound good. And then on top of that, I got COVID.
Yes, you did get COVID.
Yeah. I still got it, honestly. I don't know what I'm doing tonight, but I figured that let's go. This is making me feel worse.
Don't die. You work too hard. I can't do your work and also my work. I would actually die.
There's a fair chance that I might do that on stream tonight. So if that happens,
we will get so many views. Oh my god, yeah, totally worth it. Totally worth it.
The show must go on. So just pretend like it is. Yeah. All right. So speaking of which, let me share the screen and just tell me a little bit before we get going here. I'm just very interested in your whole setup here. So why don't you just run down?
So I bought a whiteboard. I bought a whiteboard on Amazon.com. I actually bought the whiteboard I bought it in like March or February or something. It was March, because I was originally going to put it together while I was recovering from facial feminization surgery. But then it turned out I spent all my time actually recovering from facial. It turns out getting your whole face. Anyways, I didn't have the time I thought I would, but eventually I did build it, and now I have it. And I've also got a light down here, and I've got a light over there, and I've got a light behind it, and I've got my windows open to let some natural light in to kind of balance it all out. So yeah, and my phone is what's recording me right now, and it's in a little tripod. It's called ZY Play. Usually it has like extra software and stuff that it goes with it to give it extra good. I can record in like 4K and stuff with it, but it's not on right now. Right now, its only job is to hold my phone straight so that it will look good.
Yeah, and it does.
Be steady.
And it does. Absolutely. All right. Well, cool. Well, I like that quite a lot. Good job. Good job with that.
Yeah, right. I'm really excited to experiment with it and try to see what I can do here, because I also have somewhere. I'm not going to look for it because this is a wired attachment. I don't want to pull my phone over, but I have a lavalier mic, which is the kind that like snakes up your shirt. You can clip it.
Oh yeah, little lapel mic or something.
Yeah, they're called lavalier mics.
No way, that's cool.
Yeah, isn't that a great name, lavalier?
Yeah, is that French?
I have absolutely no idea. I learned it in school.
That's pretty cool. I'm gonna have to look that up later. There's an article in there somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. But anyways, I have one somewhere, but I don't know how to make it play nice with my iPhone. So that's another thing to figure out for later. Maybe I'll just get a webcam instead of using my iPhone.
Well, it's certainly nice to have a little variety. Usually, I just there's like the wall behind me is the color of ischemia, like a ischemic limb robbed of its blood. So nice to have some color and tone going on there. So appreciate that.
That's a very nursing reference right there.
Thank you. Yeah, just what I think of. But yeah, I mean, gosh, look, it matches. I hope you like the new background that we got. I figured, I mean, this would be the weekend.
I don't know if you heard me. I was gushing over it as soon as I came into the street. I was like,
yeah. I mean, because it's not the weekend, right? So, and when you're here, I think it brings us to another level. So, hey, a little bit of flattery.
Did you draw that graphic? Are you draw? Yeah, the same style as the.
No. This is just a default from Canva.
Cute.
So yeah, nothing.
I knew it was the same style as I've seen this the poster you did for when we were soliciting contributors for the magazine.
That's some Canva artist who is not attributed at all. So
sad.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
Thank you, anonymous Canva artist. Very cool.
Thank you. All right, so we've got a ton of work to do. I'm
pushing this back a little bit because I think it's still chopping my head off.
Yeah, it might be. That looks good from here.
Maybe what if I'll sit on this little thing here? There we go. This is not a good thing for me to be sitting on, but that's okay.
So, as I said, this was a very, very busy week. The week last week went from the 10th of June, and it ended at about the 16th, I suppose. Yes. So this was about 30 articles all in all. And so just once again, very tough week. And if you notice the 11th, just a ton of articles. I think there was 14 in one day. That's a record.
Christ.
Yeah. And a lot of those, to be fair, are these translations. You see this a lot of CNs. A lot of these actually all dropped within about an hour of one another. So just want to note this before we go into it.
I can't be on this. Sorry, I can feel the plastic cracking. I'm gonna stop sitting on that. I'm just maybe taking a knee.
Yeah. God, you gotta get comfy.
I'm just trying to get it. I'm just desperately trying to get in frame while you're talking.
Let's open up a fund me for a donation drive for a chair for our.
I have a chair. It's just too low. I have a chair right here. It's just it's a low chair.
All right. Well, do what you got to do.
What if low chair also? Oh God, low chair here. No, it's done. Then I look like a child. Oh, I'm gonna deal with it. I'm gonna fix with it. I'm gonna fiddle with it on the fly.
All right. Okay. So what we did was thank you so much, Harmony, for helping out. This is way more than one person should do. Honestly, it's really a team thing, and so especially on a week like this, so I really appreciate it. And what we did was just exchange days. So the week again started on the 10th. So what we'll do is we'll go by day, and Harmony, you'll start us off with the SCPs that were posted on the 10th. I'll take the 11th, and then so on until we're done with the week, which ends at June 16th. So
also, I found a chair, so I'm in a good spot.
It looks really good. Yeah. Okay. I like that. Okay, so why don't you start us off? It'd be good to go in order, I think, just because this is such a long week. Sure. So let's start with SCP 6293, and then we'll just kind of talk about
6293 Squirrel. This one was, my note is absolutely bizarre in all the right ways. Sorry, I just stared right into one of my lights, and I've got like spots in my eyes. I'm having trouble reading my stuff here. Just like ways, on the road. The Kentucky Derby has nothing on the squirrel here, because it's a squirrel that it starts kind of weird, like runs across street and runs back, and it affects the driver behavior, but then it just goes like completely off the rail. There's like a log with the Kentucky Derby commentary. It's very strange. It's completely off the rails. I really enjoyed reading it.
Cool. So it kind of takes the idea of a squirrel running on and off the road to oncoming cars, and it sounds like it sort of makes a sport out of that.
Yeah, it was a really thin. I was when I first read the description, like, this is a kind of a thin premise, but then they absolutely completely ran away with it.
Excellent. And then it looks like it's not really that long either. Pretty concise.
Brevity's the soul of wit.
I'm telling you. All right, so you would recommend this read? You'd say
definitely. This was. I don't want to spoil too much, but this I think was one of the best things that was posted over the week that we are reviewing today.
That's awesome. It's got a decent amount of appreciation here at 18, so that's cool. If you haven't read this one, this is by an author, G.S. Palmer. I don't know that author, so maybe this is a
I've never heard of him either.
And the name of this one is
Squirrel.
Okay, cool.
I did write the titles this time. I wrote the titles down this time. Yeah. I did not write the authors, but I wrote all the titles down. Except for 32J, because 32J doesn't deserve it.
Does it have a title? We'll get to that one. I know.
I didn't even look. I started reading it, and then I figured out what it was, and I got kind of upset, and then I stopped reading it, and then I moved on.
A little foreshadowing there. Definitely for that. Okay, well, so that's a nice way to start us off. If you like the idea of a little article, nothing too commitmental, that makes an anomaly and a little bit of sports commentary, live action sports action going on with a squirrel running in front of cars, then this would be the one for you.
I think it's like a combination of my ADHD, like my brain is always like squirrel, distraction, and the Stanley Cup final being on, to being like inundated in sportingness. But I don't know, something about the oeuvre of this one, really, just the vibe of it was good. I liked it a lot. I thought this was an excellent article.
Yeah, and I agree. I did read this one too. I remember this one now, and so this was pretty funny. Something happens to the researcher who's sent in there to sort of go undercover with the squirrels, and you'll just have to read what happened with that one. So.
It goes off. That article just has no rails. I want to say it goes off this, but it didn't have rails to begin with.
Nice. Yeah, it's a nice idea, fun article, and so that's definitely a recommendation. All right, so next one, SCP-6551. Let's see what's here.
6551, Clockwork Lullaby. Nice. This one is a cool, simple article about a mechanical singing bird. The addendum is meh. Overall, I found it to be overwhelming, and I'm trying to read my own handwriting. Also, boo for the link at the end. I don't actually remember what that's referring to.
Let's take a look. This is a strange thing to include at the end here. There's just a word that says porridge. I thought that was the link, but it's not a link.
Oh no, it's all the tea staffer more by what have you. I was saying I didn't. Okay. I thought that I got to the end of that and I was like, come on, really?
Yeah. That's a big thing now. That's a big thing. And then
I do not like it. I think it is ego stroking and unnecessary.
Yes, I agree. This is really the purpose of an author page.
Kind of link your author page if you're that horny for people to read your other stuff.
Yeah, and they do, and they do everything else. So yeah, gosh, this is really the start of a very long conversation, about the encroaching it's sort of an increased frenzy for people to promote themselves and make their name so much more visible on the article than it used to be.
Everyone's got to be a brand.
Yeah, everybody's got to be a brand. You see it up here. It's down at the bottom. It's an author page that's listed out into a table. There's also an author page there. The podcast that this person is a part of is advertised here as well.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's a good podcast, by the way. I don't know what the porridge is doing here. I wish that had something to do with something.
Yeah, that's what's going on with that one.
I don't know. That's
maybe we should shoot them. We should shoot them a PM just specifically to ask that. Like, what the hell is going on with why does it say porridge?
I don't know. Maybe it was porridge. Like a mistake.
maybe there's like a really, really intensive Goldilocks and the Three Bears ARG that we're not privy to.
You know what? I hope it ties in somewhere, because otherwise,
what is the point, TM?
Yeah, but then again, it's the same thing. It's like, well, why not? I mean, like, why not? Because I mean, this is here. They're already putting this in.
Okay. Fuck it, porridge. Fuck it, porridge.
Yep. T Staffer is, as we'll see this week, someone who is really busy lately. Excuse me. A lot of articles this week. I think the most I've ever seen of anyone post in one week was this author. So that's a good thing and a bad thing, I suppose. But we'll get to that.
All right. Another one to cross off my board.
So what did you think? You said this one was a good one or what?
I thought it was a decent premise, and I like that it was simple, but I felt like it kind of just didn't do anything really interesting with the premise. It was this clockwork singing bird, kind of neat, but it kind of my interest dwindled in it, and by the end I was just like, I'm ready to move on to the next thing.
Yeah, so it looks
didn't hold my attention, didn't hold my interest.
So it puts people into a trance-like state.
Just like the trance-like state that I was in by the end of this article.
There you go. Oh, look at that. That's nice. Yeah, so okay. Well, it's short. Interesting. Does it have anything to do with the Church of the Broken God? Just every time I hear clockwork.
That's what I thought. I'm not sure. I didn't get any overt references, but I've also never ever at any point in my SCP career been well versed in the lore of the Church of the Broken God. Like I thought that the articles that Gears made were really cool, and I thought that the stories I read, but I never was like people. I know that there are some people who are like into it, like a metaphysician is into the Church of the Broken God, and you have the McCain and the Xbox 360 guy and all that other shit out there. But I am not well versed enough to know if there's like a hidden reference. There was nothing that was up front being like, hey, it's the bird of the broken god. Check them out.
Right. Interesting. Okay. Well, so this one did not quite hit. This one gets a middle thumb, neither up nor down. Kind of a meh. Meh. All right. Well, that's okay, because once again, T Staffer will have plenty of opportunities to impress this week. So next one, SCP CN 1256, a translation article, obviously.
The SCP Foundation Chinese Branch Chronicle.
Oh yeah,
I really thought this was going to be another "The Wiki is the SCP" article, but it exceeded expectations.
Oh, good.
So it is kind of meta. It's a video game that is your like a Foundation simulation kind of thing, and then when you play it, it has real world effects on the Foundation. But it has a really cool interview, which I enjoyed in spite of the fact that someone unironically verbalizes LOL in the context of the interview.
Really?
Yeah, like they say it as a word, like I just did just there.
There it is. You're right. Lol.
Which caught my attention. Which it definitely kept my attention. They didn't do too much like that. If you lay that on too thick, boy, that'll ruin an article faster than you can say Keter duty, Keter duty. Whatever you say.
Yeah, there you go. So this is not a text-based interview. This is an in-person interview, and yeah, just wanted to double check that.
Yeah, that's what I had to.
Yeah,
you're like, what the heck?
I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, so people are actually saying "lol," maybe in dialogue. So it's plausible. It seems like it should live in a text interview. But
people do say that for some reason.
Yeah. I guess there's enough room in there, enough time has passed where that can pop up in casual interviews in the SCP Wiki. in universe.
Oh man, it's weird. It's the culture has changed around SCP enough on the internet that is now totally acceptable. Whereas when I started, that would have been like a major, such a faux pas I can't even begin to describe.
Yeah, and once again, that's another long
run you out of town on a stick for that one.
You know, and I hate to sound like mean, but I miss that. I miss that sort of intensity. You know, that one wrong. It's almost like being a part of the Foundation. Actually, like one wrong move, and
you're out of here, kid.
Yeah, you're gone. We don't take kindly to that. You know, we don't play games like that. Looks like there's a latest version of the document. So it does that whole, outdated document is what you're reading thing, and then
that's what made me think that this was going to be. Oh, this is going to be it's the wiki, but it's an SCP. But again, it exceeded expectations.
Okay. Kind of scrolling.
I did not have low expectations because it's a translated article. I had low expectations because I've read way too many. The wiki is the SCP articles.
Yeah, there are a lot of those, aren't there?
There's too many. S. Andrew Swan was a mistake.
Oh boy. I'm telling you, that one arguably is the sort of the father article of what do you call it? Pataphysics, I guess, in some ways.
Oh yeah. Well, the last line of S. Andrew Swan's was actually still one of the best. We found God, and he's a bunch of horror writers. I still love that.
Yeah, it's almost like that author took the wiki to the precipice of pataphysics, but at the same time did everything that should be done with pataphysics right there.
Ahead of his time, definitely ahead of his time.
So I'm reading this too, and it looks as this reminds me a lot of what's that game, Lobotomy Corporation, and once again, shout out to Salt Blossom for doing that article for the magazine.
I hadn't even thought of it, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah, it really reminds me that you basically it looks like you're doing a lot of the same things. That game's mechanics really are about the managerial side of containment and how to do that. And just kind of scrolling through some of these, that's kind of what this reminds me of.
That's what I thought about. What it reminded me of was a game that never came out that was being developed by this guy called Riskful. That was like a super deep Foundation simulator that was like in the style of the XCOM games, but it never went anywhere. Like he developed it for like a year. He posted YouTube updates of it as it was going, and he made a decent bit of progress, and then he ran out of steam and gave up.
Oh man, when was this?
This was like 2012. I could find the YouTube channel for you if it's still up.
Oh, yeah. That'd be cool.
It's called Risk Makes Games.
Risk.
It's an abandoned. RISC makes games.
RISC, my bad. Risk Makes Games. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, there you go.
Huh. Interesting.
This is a little rabbit hole here I've just sent you down, I think.
Wow, look at this. Yeah, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. It hasn't been a while. Hasn't been around in a while. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll take a look at that. That's interesting. Huh. Just add it onto the pile of games and projects that never made it. Never made it.
Vaporware.
Yeah, but look, it was really all about it, wasn't it?
He was super into it. It looked like it would have been a really cool project if he finished. He just didn't finish it. Too much ambition for one person.
Well, all right. So it sounds like you recommend this article.
I liked it a lot. I thought it was pretty excellent.
Okay, excellent. I don't know. Do these have a name? I guess. Let's see. Let's see what the name of this one is.
The name was the SCP Foundation Chinese Chronicle. That's that's the name. Yeah, that wasn't a bit. That's actually what it's called.
Gotcha. Wow. Okay. Well, cool. All right. So the last one for June 10th would be SCP-6341.
Yes, I have three pros and one con for this. The Canadian Mail Void. Pros, cool concept. It's like alternate dimension mail being sucked in and spat out. Cool con procs. It's got really long, detailed containment procedures, and the logs are cool. But the whole article has one fatal flaw, and that it is overwritten to shit.
Really?
It is so overwritten, it's not even funny. Like, you can look at that. It's bloated to all hell.
Wow.
Just look with your eyes. Like, you don't need that many words. I don't care what they're saying. You don't need that many words. Those huge paragraphs.
Boy, that's a scroll.
Yeah, it's a slog. It's a really cool idea, but it's just absolutely gutted by terrible discipline in terms of word usage and word choice. And sentence, just bloviation everywhere.
I see a couple of data expunged. I think just looking at the addendum formatting is interesting. Usually we would have this like in a box,
Yeah, it's very retro. It's very much the thing that you don't see that anymore.
Yeah, we've got data expunged. Excuse me, and dates black box. These are kind of old school. Kind of reminds me of an old school kind of aesthetic going on here, especially with these like all caps sort of parentheticals that we see peppered around here. Okay, so you said
it's got an old timey vibe, but it's just too many words to describe what it's describing.
So it does remind me of the old style, maybe Series 1 Conproc sort of bloat, where it's just too much. It just doesn't know when to stop. Is that kind of
doesn't know when to call it? Yeah.
Okay, interesting. All right, and it's relatively short. So what do you think? What's your verdict on this one?
Too many words. Try again.
Too many words. Sorry, gang. Decently well appreciated though at plus 32.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's not really that bad. It's just really like I can't. Things being overwritten is my bête noire. I hate it. It really drives me crazy when I see something that could have been done with such elegance being done instead with just bluntness and overdoing it.
Now, I happen to have a secret. I know what author wrote this. Do you?
I didn't look at any of the authors for that. I don't know any of them.
All right, you ready?
Who's it?
Dr.
Cactus. Oh shit! I'll be damned.
I know, right? I know.
Wow.
Yeah. I know. I was like, oh shit. Because honestly, I read this one too. This is before you gave your help. Thank you. And I'd read this and I thought, this one is like I thought exactly what you thought. I thought that it was an interesting idea, but there was a lot of problems in this article.
A lot of drag.
And yeah, it's just a lot of drag. I don't think it really did a great job with what it was working with. And so when I got to the end and saw it was gears, I had to, that's just the blind study, critic, where it's like, sorry, I don't think this is good. And then you go, oh, sorry. Oh, gears.
Yeah. Oh, geez, gears. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, man. Shit.
My bad.
Yeah. But no, I was a little surprised. I thought this was, I mean, hey, not everybody can have it.
I'm surprised, but I'm not surprised, because when was the last time he actually sat down to write an SCP? I know he's done some excellent tales.
Yeah.
In the but this is very much the old school style though. So he's not lost his classic touch. So maybe this is a warm up. We'll see something better from him next.
Yeah.
I'd like that.
There is obviously a finesse here. I mean, knows what they're doing. A little heavy-handed, like you said, but this certainly did give that older vibe, pretty reliably. So it's very exciting to see Gears. Hey, he's not King Midas, right? Everything.
Love to see him just doing stuff.
Yeah. So very, very cool. And one person might like it, another, more than another. So that's just what it is. But I agree with you personally. I thought this was probably below the capabilities of Gears, just from what we've seen. But hey, great to see it.
Yes, I agree. So that knocks out June 10th.
Now, we can do this if you want to hang out for a while. We can. I'll take my days just to give you a break. But if you'd like, we can go ahead and knock yours out, especially if you got something to do.
I want to go to probably it's an hour later for me than it is for you. So my bedtime is going to be probably at about 9 o'clock here.
Okay.
So if that sounds like a capital idea to run
Let's do it.
first.
Let's do it. Okay. So the next one is, there's only one this day, which is great for you. So SCP 6507. Let's talk about that.
I did not like this one bit.
Right.
I thought this was quite bad.
Yeah. Please tell me about it.
My words are bad article about dancing pasta, trying hard to be wacky and silly. Yeah. Pretty inconsequential. I don't like it at all.
Yeah. So let's read the first thing here. So it
reminded me of the infinite pasta pot, but not funny or interesting.
Yeah, I thought I remembered an article that was a lot like that recently. Was that a recent article, like in Series 5?
The Infinite Pasta Pot was originally an archived article, and then when they were going through and torturing themselves about what to do about the ARC articles that were fine as they were, that was one they rewrote it. I think it's in Series 5.
Okay, that's where I know it from.
I think. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's in Series 5.
Yeah, so we have
could be wrong.
This image looks like it was taken by somebody just literally from their phone. No big deal.
Just at their kitchen table, just like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah, they've done a decent job cutting out the context that would make that apparent, but you know. So it's a ceramic bowl containing 71 strands of spaghetti. Why 71? Does that come into the picture?
Nope.
Okay.
Just random. Just random facts.
And so we get so let's see. There are performances that occur. So basically what it looks like this is a bowl of spaghetti that will produce other forms of pasta in order to enact like theatrical performances?
I don't know, dude. This article's dumb. This is just dumb and bad. I don't like any part of this. I think it is just terrible at every. It's not well written. The interview is bad. The pictures are bad. The containment procedures are boring. The description is ludicrous and not justified in itself at all. It's just nothing positive to say about this one. I wanted to find something that had nothing intellectually honest that was positive to say about it. I don't want to reach for something when I already don't like it.
Yeah, you got to be honest with it, you know.
Yeah, so, I don't want to be insincere. This sucks.
Hey, that's appreciated though. So, you know, one thing we can say, you said the containment procedures were pretty boring, and this is a good example of something that I call Lego conprox, which is just to say that they all come prepackaged. Like that. Yeah, where you just kind of it's really non-specific. That's the problem. I think it's not necessarily always the case that containment procedures have to be, you know, very tailor fit to your anomaly. But I think that's usually a pretty good indication that the author knows what they're doing, that they've thought this thoroughly, and that the anomaly is creative and interesting. I mean, if your containment procedures they're so non-specific that they're basically Legos. They're basically just these random pieces in a pile that you can stick on to one another and have this little, you know, sort of amalgam of wrong colors and things that don't complement one another, weren't designed really to be placed next to one another like that. You know, I usually think that's a bad sign for an article. It's not always the case. It's not a rule, more like a guideline. But when you have containment procedures that could be in any other, you know, so many other articles.
Yeah, when they're copy paste interchangeable, it's like, why is this special? Have to have special containment procedures if you can treat it like an anomalous object where it gets boilerplate.
Right. Really takes the special. Exactly. It takes the special right out of it. It's just
right out of it. It's gone.
It's just something to get through real quick so you can get to what you think is the better part of your article. I hate to say that. It's a shame. All right. Well, I certainly don't want to read this article, so it's not terribly long, but it sounds
bad. Don't read it.
Yeah. So thank you for taking that one on the chin.
Bad article. Don't read it.
Okay, so that's
who wrote that? I want to apologize for them.
That was Bluefoot, and I'll take a moment to say I've actually been reading a lot of Bluefoot articles in the past month or two, and you know, no article that this individual has written I think is decent, and I don't say that to pick on somebody. It's just that you know, we all have articles that aren't great. We all come from a place where we need to improve, and so I'm always getting my eye on Bluefoot because I know one day there's going to be an article that this author writes that I'm going to be really, really impressed with. It doesn't sound like this is the one though.
Nope, not near. You gotta try again. Yeah, better luck next time.
Well,
I do have a couple extra things for today though, because I have.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Can I bring this? Can you see? I have. Oh god. Oh my god. Disaster.
Let me put
my headphones fell out. So I had some little notes about 3 other pages because only one thing that day, so I thought might as well. So there's an author page for an author named Clown. It was just good author page. It had some advice on it. There's an author page for Voy, which I thought showed off the author's idiosyncrasies. So 2 decent author pages, and also this poem called Mommy, which reminded me of something that was written long ago by Gargus about 173 called Crunch. It was all about it's like a poem about someone with mommy issues, And it links to SCP-6670, which I have no idea what it is, but it seems pretty spooky.
Here we go. And so I'm pulling up Mommy.
Yeah, give it a read. It's funky. It's got some funk to it.
Pretty short. All right, Mommy, I'm stuck. Please help me. The hole is squeezing my body. Please help. I'm trying, Mommy. The walls hurting my body. Does it rhyme? I guess. Interesting. And so it links to 6670, huh?
Which I don't know what that is. I have never read this article. I did not read it because it seemed long, and I had other stuff to read, so I didn't read this one. So I don't know what the.
Oh wow. Okay, so this one is written by Ekrinac, who we know well from the show, one of our favorites. Yeah, looks like okay. So Ekrinac is really, especially all these older articles, known for writing sort of dark familial stuff at one period, I guess you could say, of this author. So there certainly was like a father figure sort of article that reconciled with some some slightly abusive father figure-ish stuff. And so maybe this one is similar, just with the mother. I have to peek and see if Ekrinac wrote this one too. No, this is someone else. So,
Who wrote it?
It says Dept Department, like short for department. D-E.
No idea who that is. Yeah. It's so weird. I've been out of SCP for such a short time, but I feel like it's completely different than when I left. Like I don't recognize any of these people.
Yeah. Well, someone thought it was horrifying. I guess it is, honestly.
It left an impression. That was what we want to like. I should write down a couple of things. This is kind of weird, man.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, so that's the 12th.
Okay. Boom. And then this is the author page that you mentioned. Void. The I is raised to the 5th power, so there's 5 eyes.
Yeah, I thought it really showed off the author's idiosyncrasies. I was like, well, you definitely know what we need to know about this guy now.
I like this. There's a section called crit requests and a key for how long your crit will take if you request it from this person. 500 words or less 1 day. And then they separate it. They sort of give it little tiers depending on how the word count is. The turnaround time for interesting. Okay. And then the last one is a clown. Here it is.
Which I thought had some nice advice on it.
Oh, we're going to get to this one. This is a platypus magnet. Let's see. Some of the advice. Do the things you're supposed to do. Do not do the things you're not supposed to do. Shake well. Give clown dopamine points. So
good advice.
Pretty good. All right. Yeah, it's always fun to see interesting articles posted. That's the one thing I wish I could do a little more of, is kind of do exactly what you're doing. Just take a look at some of these non-SCP stuff. There's just so many damn SCPs.
I had a day where the only one. I was like, what else was posted today that was cool?
Overachiever. I love it. All right, so you got 2 more days, and
I do.
Okay,
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more articles here.
All right,
so let's also tell you what I thought was the best, the worst, and the most meh.
Okay, I like that. Let's take it to SCP-6557. That good?
Yes.
All right.
This was Annihilation from across time. This article is all style and no substance. It wants to be SCP-5000 so bad, but it is not even close. It's also, I'm getting sick of seeing that theme that everybody's ripping off from the Wanderer's Library sci-fi contest. You're not fooling me. I helped make that theme. I saw it happen. So you're not fresh. You're not fresh and original as you think you are.
Is that this terminal looking thing, or
yeah? Okay. Yeah, the whole terminal theme was originally from the Wanderer's Library sci-fi contest.
Really?
Yes.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yep.
Okay, so this one is also by T. Staffer, who seems to be on a real tear lately. So last week we looked at the tidal wave, which got a lot of positive reception. I think it was like plus 100 by a week. So I want to say that T. Staffer is either on some sort of organic roll or has this wind behind them from that successful article and is sort of feasting on that confidence, because once again, this is several articles this week, but not so much this one, you say?
No, this one did not captivate me. This one, it's going for that epic scope, but I couldn't shake that. This is just weak sauce SCP-5000. This is just trying to do that world humanity ending threat kind of thing, but not really. I don't know. It didn't do it for me. I felt like it had a lot of pieces, and none of them fully came together by the end, and I was just left being like, well, Yes, that's it. All right, see you later.
Yeah, I did give this one a little look, and it looks as though there's this thing here there's a picture of a cross, and for some reason, yeah,
there's my nice things. I like the picture.
Yeah, that is a very good picture. And it's something to do with the fact that this little obelisk with the cross on top is somehow pivotal in every timeline's survivability, so that if something happens to this that's not supposed to happen to this, it can destabilize the reality. And so that's kind of what we get when we open this up with this automatically high stakes. It's almost
that's like that's what immediately made me think of SCP 5000. Whenever there's a note from an 05 now, I'm just like, oh, you're trying to be SCP 5. You're trying to be Y, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely pulling the technique from that, I think, and no one really has done it better, have they? I mean, I don't know. That's one of the things.
I would say that SCP 2000 is the secret originator of this technique, but definitely 5000 has not been surpassed when it comes to that tactic.
Yeah. Tanhoney did do an SCP this week, and by God, it's great. My God. So just an excellent author there. All right. Well,
he's good. He's got a lot of practice.
Yeah. How long has he been writing, by the way?
He's been writing since longer than I have.
That's crazy.
He's been writing since like 2000, like the early days, since the aughts.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. He's been around for. He's left and come back. So he was gone for many years, and then he came back, and it was like, and then he's gotten back in the groove.
Speaking of the groove, though, what we see with something like To Staffer, not to get off topic just a little bit, but I remember when the 5,000 contest was coming about, and that's when Tanhoney really came back and sort of hit the stride and was really writing something every other day. I mean, maybe someone else remembers this.
He's done it a few times. He's got that in him. He can do it kind of at will.
Yeah,
he's feeling juicy.
And so there's like this build up, this like momentum, this crescendo and culmination where all that kind of piled, and then the contest came around and he got that 5,000. So hey, you never know, maybe To Staffer is winding up, because the 7,000 contest is any day now. They're going to announce.
Oh, don't threaten me like that.
They will.
We're gonna have to read all of those.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's gonna be. I don't know what we're gonna do.
We're gonna have to get like a third or fourth person to help us, because otherwise we will die.
Yeah,
we'll just be covering the 7,000 contest until we're like decrepit.
Yes,
one or the other.
Eyeballs just like shrivel.
Just like they fall, just falling out.
Little raisins.
We tried to read it in Braille, our fingers fall off. It's too much.
Now that would be an interesting entry. All right. So the next one on this day, SCP-6751. Let's take a look at this one. Very pretty. Look at this.
The house that.
Oh, there it is.
I wrote it, but I can't read it.
Here it is. I can tell you. The house that wasn't there.
The house that wasn't there.
Yeah, this is that floaty e-begging beggar CSS box that follows you.
I liked this one. I thought that I liked that it gave me a kind of an ephemeral feeling. I don't know. It's eerie throughout, and it reminds me of something that Soulless Singularity would have written back there, your Famine Pulse. You've got that grim bliss feel.
Yeah, the pink I think helps too, but yeah, it looks as though there's something conceptual about this. The house that wasn't there obviously kind of brings to mind maybe something anti-memetic or some new spheric.
Yeah, I'm not gonna drop details on this one because this is one that I want people to read. But this one's excellent. I like this a lot.
Okay, yeah, very intriguing. Let's check the length here. It's not too long. Interesting imagery here, and I like how they're very skimpy on the contents and things like that.
Yes, and I like that the image blocks had the images not found in them.
Yeah, that's cool.
I thought that was a nice touch to have the custom file not found things in it.
This is just really interesting. I mean, if you just kind of scan this, I mean, look at the I guess this is a video transcription here, but I mean, just these three lines together, door opens, that's how it ends. Yeah, very cryptic.
Very cryptic, very ephemeral.
Yeah.
Who wrote this? Who wrote this one?
It's right here. It's following us all over the page. Let's see. Esoterica. Esoterica is the name.
Don't know who that is. Okay.
Yeah.
Good job, Esoterica. You wrote an article that I liked.
Cool. All right. Good. So check that one out. SCP-6751. The last one for the 14th, which I can already tell you have some strong opinions on.
This fucking thing. This fucking thing. This is just it's the Twitter meme. They did the Twitter meme as an article. Isn't it so funny? Isn't it so funny when we take things that happen on the wiki and we turn them into SCPs? How funny is that? Isn't that such an original, funny thing to do? It's so funny. Haha, it's funny.
So if I look at these, am I going to see that? I think I am. If I click this, I'm going to see that image, aren't I?
Yep. Why don't you check it out? Oh, wow! Didn't see that one coming.
No, not at all. So what's going on here for anyone who might not know?
So someone made an image on Twitter and it would get you banned, and everyone at SCP was immediately like, "Oh, get banned from Twitter? Yes, please," because they all hate what Twitter does to them and each other and themselves on Twitter, at least.
Yep.
So they were eager to be banned, and it was a big rigmarole, and everyone had a wonderful time. And now that it's nice and stale and no longer in the zeitgeist, let's make an SCP out of it and get 100 upvotes. Because why not?
Yeah, it seems like it's done pretty
well.
And
this is by far, this is the only one that I remember the rating for, because I was annoyed that by far this had way more upvotes than anything else.
Yeah.
And I started reading, I was like, oh, it's a thing that affects people in real life. And then if you share the image, it's this. Okay.
And we may have seen that coming, just of course, because the author has told us who they are, ruining any truly unbiased and blinded read and assessment of the article. But
I hate articles like this. They've never been funny, even one time that anyone has ever written one. And stop making SCP Foundation things that happen into SCPs. They don't need to be SCPs. Don't need to.
I guess the author felt like this was too seminal of a thing to not, I guess, cash in on, so to speak.
That cashing in is, I think, the exact phrase that I would use on it. Yeah.
Well, all right. If you enjoyed that Twitter meme and you're a big fan of memetic content on the wiki, which obviously a lot of people are,
this is the opposite of evergreen content.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. And there seems to be less of a concern for that. There's a time and place for it. Obviously, a K contest, for example, might be a good place to put that foot forward. But there is something, now that you say that I've seen recently, where there does seem to be less interest, less really reason that these authors have, less reason that they see why they should care about maybe writing something that's timeless, and instead put a lot of effort into just,
chasing whatever's hot.
Yeah, very proximal, very ephemeral, very fleeting, really just flavor of the moment kind of stuff. And unfortunately, it's probably, once again, the rating probably is a reflection of just the time the recency bias of this. If you had tried to post this, next year, I don't know, would anybody?
No one would give a fuck about it. It would be like, half the people on the wiki would not even have been around. They would not remember it. They would have and that's what's gonna happen. It's gonna be really hard. Then, like a year, people are gonna be like, "Why the fuck did we upvote this?" Yeah. It's like an idea that your friend has at a party when you're both absolutely plastered, and then you think, "Oh, it's a great idea," and then in the morning you're laying on a pile of like burritos and banjos or whatever antics you got into it the night before, and you're like, "Why did I do this to myself?
Why did we get 30 burritos from Taco Bell?" I don't know.
Yeah.
All right.
When I blew my life savings on bean chalupas, this was a mistake.
And then honestly, like the whole like tucking it in and putting it at the very end, it just seems like such a hackneyed way to go about that. I mean, like if you're gonna do this and if you're gonna work,
if you're gonna dance like this,
yeah, I mean, this is the worst, most trite way you could possibly play it.
It's like you've been curtsying and dancing around it, and then right at the end, you just drop your pants and do a big fart in everyone's face, like, "Hey, get it? Making sure you get it."
Yeah. It would be better if you didn't put it in there. I mean, like at least that gives a little bit more, subtlety to it, I guess. Anyway, all right. Well, so that's
hated that one. Hated that one. Did not like that one at all.
I wonder why the 32. I don't know. Maybe that means something that I don't know.
I'm going to just assume it was the first available open slot in the J's.
Interesting. It should have been 12. That's probably already taken. The Twitter ban was for 12 hours. That would have been nice. All right.
See, that would have been perfect.
Yeah, that would be cool. All right. So last day for you, the 16th. We got 2 here. We'll start with SCP-6728. Tell us a little bit about
the Dust Bowl. I like the Dust Bowl. I love it when when this article, I think, is a really cool thing that you don't see done often enough, where I think too often the Foundation is portrayed as being like totally above the world and the affairs of, you know, humanity and governments and society and people. I feel like when you have the Foundation just being like totally divorced from that, you really lose a lot of what makes them potentially interesting as an organization, as the people in the organization. You know, they might see themselves that way, but they're not. No matter, they can't exist like that because they exist in the world. They can't just be like working. They can't work like the actual Illuminati because, one, that's boring, and two, the Illuminati couldn't work like that plausibly. So you're just making your universe less grounded and interesting. But this really does a great job of making the Foundation's interaction with the real world stick and feel impactful and feel like it's actually part of the larger, wider world outside of the Foundation, both before and behind the veil. So I really like this one. I thought this one was really cool.
Good. Yeah, it's always nice to see people properly treating the Foundation, you know, because I think the easy thing to do is to make them into idiots in order to progress an article.
Either making them idiots or omnipotent.
Yeah, which is equally boring, you know, because I mean the whole effect is to get something out of this organization which is competent but not overpowered, right? So, and if you play it too hard, they're not interesting because they're Mary Sue's, and if you make them too much of an idiot, then you know, you suck all the gravity out of the situation completely. So yeah, that's a great reason to like this article. It looks like it's a decent length, interesting imagery in here. This looks like
that is actually a series. There's a series 2 SCP that's an Are We Cool Yet? That's one of the earliest Are We Cool Yet articles. I think that's what this is riffing on.
Really?
Yeah, because I distinctly remember that toilet. There's an SCP that's a gold version of that toilet. That's one of the earliest Are We Cool Yet articles.
Huh.
And it tips you off because it's a Duchamp that made that, and you know, Ruiz Duchamp. It's not Ruiz, but it's another one.
Oh yeah, Marcel Duchamp. Yeah,
Marcel Duchamp.
So it looks like we're dealing, as you say, with themes of the lifted veil and sort of, you know, the Foundation trying to spin these plates, as it's known to do, to keep these things, you know, people unawares. But it looks like this anomaly sort of is difficult when it comes to that. So we get a lot of this lifted veil scenario thing being mentioned here.
I'm so into it. I'm so into that shit. Yeah. Whenever the Foundation's actually like that's why Unfounded is my favorite. Not Unfounded. What's the one? Broken Masquerade, where it's like totally Foundation's just IRL.
Yeah, that's so cool. Like I never would have thought that would be an interesting direction to go. It would feel like you broke something, you know. Just that'd be the way that I would first react to it. But that's an awesome hub. Who came up with that? Do we know?
Which
Broken Masquerade?
Broken Masquerade was that? Yeah. Clef was Unfounded. I'm not sure who did Broken Masquerade. Might have been Silver Escher, because I know that he did stuff like that, like with Star Signals was an early kind of pre-canonicity Broken Masquerade type artital. Yeah, now I'm curious. Who do we have to thank for this?
Oh, Dr. Everett Mann is the first one on the hub. I don't know what that
Man. This is I remember now that was Man did the Broken Masquerade. Yeah,
that is so cool.
Man was more into the site in like 2012 and such. Was that 2013? Yeah, right. And then Man was more into the site. He didn't get to kind of be the absentee landlord until later on.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah. Okay. Well, cool. I guess this one is part of it. It's not.
2 thumbs up for me. I like that one.
Okay. So this is SCP-6728, and then let's. Man, it's really not really that highly rated, you know. For this, let's see who wrote this, just to give him a shout out.
32J taking all the attention.
I'm telling you, you got unlucky. You got right next to it. Agisuru, I'll say, is the name of the.
Good job.
There. So. Okay, well, cool. Read that one. That does actually sound really, really interesting. SCP-6558. I think this is the last one.
Yes. Word disassociation.
T Staffer again.
This one is I kind of liked it. It's funky. It's kind of it's the same kind of a multiversal approach as the last one, but it's got all it's kind of the I'm trying to find the words for it because what I wrote down is just that it's like a funky misters list, but it's kind of like a how do you describe it when something's like artistically just totally subverting and breaking down the tropes of
like iconoclastic or something.
Yeah, iconoclastic. Not the word I'm looking for, but it'll do. It's gonna come to me in like an hour when I'm like laying in my bed, getting ready to go to bed and sleep. I'm like,
here it is.
I
I'll still be on here. Just jump back on and just drop that word. Yeah, this looks. Speaking of funky, I think funky is a great word for this. I mean, because you open up this archive documentation and the image doesn't work. You know, I assume that's intentional because it's just named generically.
It's got this thing's got some stank on it. This thing's got a little bit of spin to it. It's good.
I like that. It's like a stinky cheese. It's like, oh yeah, yeah, that's good. Yeah, and look at the containment procedures. They're a list. I mean, talk about prescriptive writing. I mean, this is it's telling you exactly what to do, including looks like burning things.
Yeah, it's really this one definitely, Kevin, especially as someone who is really interested in the phenomenon of the misters lists and how those lists and other people imitated and copied them affected the site over time. To see someone take it and kind of like stretching and breaking it and making it into something totally different, but still using the forms of the misters list, I find that to be absolutely fascinating. I think that this is definitely it's not the best article of the ones, but it's definitely the one that's doing the most new, interesting stuff, I think, of all the ones that I read.
I mean, everywhere you look on this thing, it is real interesting. I mean, take a look at this down here. This SCP has parentheses for its digits, I guess, and yeah, wow, this decently long too. Honestly, now that it looks like it meshes Gamers Against Weed and Little Misters. Although this is Senor, this is like a different Little Misters.
The Seniors were actually something that was originally written by Jekyll, and then he deleted the original Senor Purple, but then I think it later came back. And yeah, that was a Jekyll project. God, Jekyll was such a. I'm so sad Jekyll deleted so many of his articles because Jekyll was such a good. Oh. Sorry, my phone's bedtime thing just came on, but Jekyll, I highly admire that man.
Jekyll, I think I know was in the 3000 contest, and I know wrote The Tower, which I think is SCP-3333, and I think that was rewritten. I think the end of that was rewritten by Cactus, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And I think Cactus had to wrestle that away from Jekyll, who was going to delete that.
That sounds about that sounds about right. Yeah.
I wonder why did Jekyll want to delete all of his stuff?
I have absolutely no idea. I think he was just unhappy with it quality-wise.
Interesting. All right. Well, we got porridge again at the end. I don't know.
Why? What is going on with that? Please, someone explain it to me.
Maybe it was just an outlier, but apparently
but it's twice now. I thought it was once. It could just be like, okay, a random word made into the article. But why is it?
Yeah.
What is?
Same word now. Yeah.
Okay, now I'm actually worried that there's a Goldilocks ARG. I don't want that to be the timeline.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I want to say, of course, it doesn't have anything to do with the name. I just don't understand. Yeah. Okay. Well, cool. Porridge. I hope you're a fan.
Good job, Porridge.
Cooking at the end. Just getting really weird. These signatures. These hey, look at my brand name stuff.
Oh, it was T Sever who also did the porridge on the other one, right? So maybe that's just part of his personal. Yeah, exactly. There's his. Yeah. See, I didn't notice the collapsible at the end this time because I was too busy thinking about how much I liked the article. So see, if you write a good article, you can distract me from criticizing you for being an egotist.
Yeah. I mean, hey, it happened. I'm still not gonna like it, but you know.
Yeah. Hey, it's like the squirrel. Like, there's my attention span. Don't notice when there's the things that make me mad when there's things that make me happy.
There you go.
I guess it's a good way to live your life. Good way to live your life.
Yeah, I'm telling you, right? You know, just pay attention to what matters, you know.
All right, let me tell you. So I am gonna go to bed here soon. Although I would love next time to join you for your articles because I don't think I've actually done that yet. All the times I've joined, but it is 9 o'clock here, and I go to bed. Have to go to work tomorrow at 5. So I'm gonna go to bed here soon. Yeah. So I'm going to give you a quick rundown of, let me get out of a shadow here. Quick rundown of what I think were the best and the worst and the most meh of this week. Best one was for sure the squirrels. I fucking love the racing squirrels.
That's awesome.
That shit gave me the most emotional reaction, which was I laughed and I smiled and I finished reading the article.
There it is. SCP-6293, I think is that one.
6293 squirrel is this week's winner for me. The worst one was the pasta. The pasta one is just so...
Oh gosh,
it's bad in the way that gives you nothing to say about it, which is the worst kind of bad.
I hate that for that author too. Like I said, it's someone that was just like kind of like, oh, like please write something better. I hate that.
Yeah, don't. It feels so condescending saying that too, but it's like, do better, man. You fucked up. You wrote a bad article.
Hey, we're putting your feet to the fire. I think it's gonna happen. Like I said, it's gonna happen.
The most meh was 30J, and I want to just show you real quick a little illustration I did. A little sad looking guy there. Did that come through?
Yeah. I'm gonna blow it up. Yeah, you got it. Cool. All right. Well, I really appreciate your help and covering these and your good comments and your experience looking at these articles. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. I had a blast doing it. I really enjoyed getting to use my whiteboard for stuff. I'm definitely gonna do that again. And let's do this again soon. And next time, I would love to start either if I don't have work the next day, or if we can start a little earlier, then I would definitely love to stay with you the whole time. But I need to go to bed. I'm yawning. I'm tired.
Do you work on Saturdays? No, I mean, maybe you don't have to answer that question on live, but we'll talk. We'll talk.
Yeah, we'll talk. Let's not tell people my schedule.
Right. Gotcha. That's a bad idea. All right. Well, I appreciate it so much. I hope you have a great night, and we'll talk to you soon. Well.
Good luck with the rest of them.
Thank you very much. I'm gonna need it. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye. Awesome. Let me make one adjustment here. All right. Well, that was Harmony. Excellent. Love the help. I need the help. My gosh, it's so difficult to go through all of these, particularly on weeks like this. So, right. So we got through Harmony's days. Harmony took most of the days of the week, so that does leave a few days left. Interestingly, I think we got more articles posted on my days. That was how that works, right? I said, hey, you take more days than me. And I got the days with a bunch of articles on them. So we're going to go through these, but we're going to take a little bit of a break. We're only about an hour in. I'm going to try to keep this pretty short. My thing typically is going really granular, really detailed on these articles. I don't know. I don't think I'm going to be able to do that this time. There's just too many articles. In the future, I'd like to get back around to doing that, but on weeks like this where there's just way too much information to go through, we'll have to keep this pretty high level, pretty high altitude stuff without getting too granular into the details of these articles. But hopefully those of you who watch this show starting to pick up a little bit on how it is that I analyze an article. That's really the point of the show. In addition to kind of let you know what's been posted, is to kind of hopefully show and educate, teach people how to read articles and how to criticize articles, how to critique them, and praise them when they need that. So, that's been sort of built up, I think, over previous weeks. Hopefully it'll continue to be that way. But today we'll probably go pretty quickly through some of these as well. So let's do a few, and then we'll get to a break as we typically do as well. All right. So Harmony did the 10th of June. And so my day is the 11th. And as you can see, once again, this is 14 that I think were posted in that day. And I want to bring something out real quick because I am not going to go through these translations. And that really pains me to say that, because I am, very strictly of the opinion that international articles, translated articles, deserve their time in the spotlight. They can be just as good as any other SCP coming out of the SCP Wiki. Certainly the English articles certainly can be better than those English articles. But the reason why I'm not going to go through these today from this date, the 11th of June, is because if you notice, if you look, they start here, they go on the screen, they go up all the way to here. So this is about 8 or 9 of these, and they're all translated by the same individual. It's the same individual who posted these, 10 minutes apart from one another for a few hours. And
this is just not going to work. It's not going to work when somebody decides to flood the wiki with these translations. It doesn't really make a lot of sense either, because if you're a translator and you want people to read these are obviously articles that the translator enjoys and that is translating so that other people can enjoy them with the translator. But then you decide to basically carpet bomb the feed of the SCP Wiki with all of these translations, literally 8 of them, all in a row. That really defeats the purpose. You're really diluting the amount of attention that any single one of these is going to get. It kind of sort of dampens the whole thing to seem to be this translator's attempt to get, their stuff or their translated stuff onto the English version of the wiki, as if that is somehow more legitimate than, let's say, the Chinese branch. So I didn't appreciate the fact that this translator did that. I feel as though it's being translated out of this kind of competitive spirit, or this sort of self-serving spirit that's watering down these already flailing and struggling writing standards on the wiki. They seem to be rushed out at breakneck speed for no better reason than to have more, representation on the wiki, whether that's this translator or whether it's, something like the China branch. So for this day alone, hopefully this doesn't happen again, but just because there's already so many articles this week, and this added 8 to the week, they're just translations that were thrown out auto fire, just rapid fire. So for that reason, and because I do want to give appreciation and time and proper treatment to those articles that took their time and are not basically just one person gumming up the pipeworks here, I'm going to skip those just to, because it's just too much. That's not cool, when you do that. And I would love to have given every single one of these a detailed breakdown and a detailed read as well, but the way that they've been posted, the decision that the translator made to kind of just block drop all of these things right there has made that impossible, particularly for the purposes of this show. So unfortunately, I will not be covering any of these translated articles from the 11th of July. Once again, they're all from the same person. And, once again, if somebody wants people to read the articles that they like, it would make more sense to kind of reel those out slowly, because otherwise you're creating a lot of competition for your own interests and your own self here. So it's untenable for our show. I can't give the other articles the due time if I do all these. So for these articles, I encourage you to read them if you have time. I can't speak to their quality. I cannot summarize them for you. I did do the five word versions of them on the weekly thing on the Confic Magazine YouTube. So, but I encourage you to do your own work on that one. Okay, so just bottom line, the translator shouldn't flood the site and have the INT specific community members pad the articles to keep them up like this when no other English article gets that treatment. I just feel like it's borderline cheating, and it's not helping the wiki standards at all. It's really a shame that the person has decided to do that, and it has hurt the wiki. So, all right. Having said that, we will get to the non-international, non-translated ones from this day. So the first one is SCP 6128. So let's let this load for a second. All right. So this one, I was very happy to see back again. This is Platypus Magnet. So I don't know if you remember, but a few weeks ago, maybe a month or so ago, we covered an article that was about a platypus, a corpse of a platypus that attracted other dead platypuses to itself that were in a reasonable range of effect, and it pulled them to the platypus and sort of grafted them onto one another. And that was pretty much it. At the end of the article, the first one that we read, something happened. One more platypus joined, and that was some sort of threshold, and it magically turned into a living platypus. And so that was kind of hanging around on the wiki for a while, and then it eventually deleted just because it didn't really have that oomph. It didn't really have something that it needed. It was like a dish without any salt or without any pepper or spice. And so it was rejected from the wiki. And I liked the article. I really liked the idea. I liked how it was so tersely written and so sort of mysterious. But yeah, it was, I think, the right call. And so now it's back, and the author has added really a couple of things at the end. And I wanted just to point these out because it really has helped the article become a lot better with a lot more staying power, as you can see. And so what basically the author did was that instead of just ending it as a platypus coming back after all of these dead platypuses, sufficient amount, join it, what happens is that they start to look into this new platypus that suddenly is alive. And they find some very strange things. There's like 32 set of organs in this one platypus. Here it is. Researchers found that it contained 32 sets of platypus organs. So currently believing that the inside of the body was affected by a spatial anomaly. So that was something that the author added that I thought was interesting and good. And then they added a second addendum, which is really short and really sweet. Following an accident during disposal of the new platypus corpse, which they killed in order to learn more about, to dissect essentially, the Foundation personnel discovered that it displays the same anomalous properties as the former one before it became a non-dead platypus. And so basically this was just a very clever way to tie the article back in on itself and sort of thread it in to a loop, just a logical loop and a structural loop. And so this is really one of the things that the article could have had that I think made it a lot better was this. And so kudos to the author, hopefully got some good advice from people, and this was an excellent way to sort of kick this article that needed a little bit of help back up into a respectable range, to where now it's on the wiki and doing very well. So yeah, this is a good one. I do recommend you read this. If you remember the Platypus Magnet from a few weeks ago and were not impressed, absolutely check this one out now. I think it's dramatically improved. So excellent job to the author, who is Clown, and that's we saw their author page just recently when Harmony pointed us into that direction. All right. Okay, so the next one is SCP-6418. Let me see if I can get this one loaded. Internet is not wanting to behave. Let me look at it on my notes real quick. Okay. Well, this is interesting. Okay, so here we go. I remember this one. All right, so this is a red light. The five words synopsis of this one is God hates running red lights. So this one is a red light, a few red lights at different intersections around, where if somebody runs it, if they go through the intersection when they're not supposed to, that is to say their light is red, they will instantly be transported to an alternate dimension where they suffer. It's like hell. And there's a very interesting design component in this article with this anomaly, where the faster somebody is speeding through a red light, the longer they stay in this hell dimension, suffering. Some people, they die when they remanifest. Everybody remanifests from the pocket dimension. Some are just slightly disturbed. It's almost like the Ghost of Christmas Past or something like that, where it shows them, maybe what could have happened if they drive recklessly like this. And so it's a little bit of this like moral, this sort of like justice vibe to this, which I appreciate, because I've thought about this before. I've thought, everybody's thought this. They've seen somebody run through a red light and there's no police officer around, and that person could have killed somebody, and there's just no justice there. And so it's just a perfect thing, I think, to be picked up by somebody writing this sort of fiction, In fact, I've thought about, how could I make that into an SCP before? Obviously, the thought didn't get very far, and I think this person does a pretty good job with it. It's at a +7, so not a lot of people like this. It's relatively low. I don't really know why people don't like it. There's not a lot of commentary. There was some like grammar stuff that this person did a great job. Just some spag stuff. Let's see what they say. awkward phrasing, conciseness, removing false certainty. Those are all great points by Bibliolatry. Author is here. So there's just not a lot of commentary in this article. I hate that. I think most of it is pretty good. There's an interview log that I think here goes into one person who was sent to this pocket hell dimension. So it's a nice, it's clean, it's believable. The dialogue is good. There's some really good lines in here. I want to know, you don't want to remember. That's the researcher trying to get information out of this person. It's just an excellent setup at the end here of the interview as well that the article uses to pick up. So this vehicle had fuzzy dice, stops writing what, kind of like a cliffhanger. It's like, what about fuzzy dice? Let's read the next bit. And so the article takes that and uses it very well. So, I mean, structurally, this is sophisticated. I think the anomaly is charming. Like I said, I think anybody sort of has this emotional insertion point with this anomaly in this article. I think there are ways that I see where the article is not great. It sours a bit with this note at the end. I think this is really probably most why this article is not doing well, in my opinion. If you removed this, I think the article would be doing much better. And the reason is because this note at the end is just a very, very bad thing to do. It's a shocking thing. It's like watching somebody do something very, very well, very competently, and suddenly it's like they're a different person and it completely falls apart. The person who you thought was doing an excellent job at, figure skating suddenly can't stand up. That's what this is like when you get to the end. All of this information in this note at the end we already know. And what's worse is that it's already, subtextual. It's already suggested. It's one of these notes at the end that takes everything that you already should know from the good writing that was before and makes it just totally literal. Just brings it out way too clearly at the fore, way too center stage, way too in the foreground. And it just really cheapens it to have the doctor spell this out so clearly for the reader. And once again, the stuff that isn't, sort of treated with a heavy hand in this section is also stuff that we've been told about already from the description. So it just vacuums the mystique out of this article immediately, very, very quickly. So I think this is a close to a fatal flaw for the article. If I had to guess, that's why the rating isn't high. It's probably that. Because the rest of it actually, I think, is pretty solid. It's an interesting thing to think about. It does do some mile per hour stuff, but you have to understand this is only situated in the United States, so I guess that makes sense. And then one other thing that I thought was really strange about this article that doesn't affect the rating of it, obviously, or my assessment of it, but this article focuses on sensitive subject matter of car accidents. Reader discretion is advised. I mean, so it just kind of like, at what point are we getting a little out of hand with these content warnings? I'm nothing against content warnings. Anyone who watches the show knows that I like to read these up front, just in case, out of respect. But, I mean, do we really need a content warning about a car accident? I mean, at this point, we're sort of just, because someone's going to be, triggered, I guess, by experiential real life happenings, by anything you write about, so, I mean, at what point are we going to just put content warnings for everything, every subject matter that we could possibly think of, that might upset somebody? I don't know. So anyway, I thought that this article is a little better than the rating, although I think the author really, really does it in for themselves, because of this end. This end statement. This absolutely should not be here. It's a shame, and really, really mars the rest of it. Okay, so that's SCP-6418. I can't remember the name of this one. God, I should probably have these names down. All right, once again, we're going to skip these because, believe it or not, once again, if these were all different translations, then maybe, but once again, these are all the same person. The same person translated every single one of these. SCP SCP-6267. Is that right? It is. Okay, this is a short one. This is a really short one. I recall this one. This is a delightful little article about how there are these very adamant and vocal anomalous object-like protesters that successfully occupy a Foundation site and bring it down. Not in the way that they were hoping, but, you know, the Lord works in mysterious ways. This is a really, really short. It's filled with subtext. There are a lot of puns going on here that you don't realize are there. And maybe until the author tells you about them in the discussion section. But it's concise. It masterfully utilizes ingredients like its setting. It's filled with character. Really has this sort of like chicken or the egg scenario kind of going on here. A lot of conceptual fun. It has one of the best sentences that I've read in weeks, so let's kind of take a look at this to enjoy it. When the objects converged on the site's main hatch, the external reality anchors surrounding it were automatically deactivated to prevent forced entry. All objects were jettisoned into this Grantonian pocket reality surrounding exclusionary Site 30. None have been recovered. I just think that's really nice thing to put there. So, you know, there's a few hints in here. Several hundred small circular orange objects of unknown composition. There's a little bit of a pun right there that the author tells you about. Anyway, so this is just a clever little article. It's not trying to do a whole lot. It's just kind of like trying to catch your eye very briefly as you pass on the street with a little bit of a smirk. And I think it's just very well written. I can't remember who the author was. Tuman, who I think has been around for a while, right? Just seems 2017. Yeah. This is a good one. Just somebody who knows what they're doing, just having a little bit of a fun time. So I definitely recommend this guy, SCP-6267. That's a good one. All right, now we move on to another to Staffer article. I would like to count, honestly, how many to Staffer articles. Let me just look real quick. I have my list. Let me just kind of answer this for us. I would love to know. How many Staffer articles were released this week. Looks like 4, which is quite a lot, honestly. And then this one is called Senor Pig. So this is a pig with a human face grafted onto its forehead. It is produced from Professor Funtastic, who's a Wondertainment knockoff. We kind of talked about it a little bit with Harmony. And this one is Senor Pig. So the article is constructed. The most noticeable thing about it is just very matter-of-factly constructed. We do have some Lego conprocs here, but you know they're very short. And you know once you kind of understand what's going on in this article, it's fine. The whole thing is explained, obviously. So you know we shouldn't be spending a lot of time on a lot of this stuff here. So that's nice. There are some clinical tone falters here. Like for example, the goal of this test is to figure out if this one shared the memories. That's just kind of a strange way to put that. There's a testing log here that goes into, this is essentially the Foundation testing this thing that they think is an anomaly because it's weird, because there's a face, there's somebody's face, like the skin of a face, like sewn into the forehead of a pig. So they figure this is anomalous because it has packaging that indicates that it's, you know, Senor Pig from Professor Funtastic or whatever. And so this is them trying to figure out how it is anomalous. And so that's what this test is. And so the test logs are pretty sleepy. And the main thing that you notice through these testing logs is that the Foundation can't help but maim this pig. They just accidentally keep giving it these horrible injuries. It loses an eye. It gets a nasty skin wound that's infected that have to amputate its ears. They try to make it force upright, walking stuff, and then they accidentally crush its forelimbs, and they have to amputate the limbs. So, I mean, this is kind of a difficult thing to read. It reads a little bit like animal cruelty. In fact, I think that we definitely should have had a content warning here as opposed to the car wreck one, on the article earlier. That's a little strange. But it ends very dryly. The whole thing is pretty dry. It's really saying that it isn't really an anomaly after all. No spoilers. Obviously, this is an EX. But I might think that this pig might be anomalously frail or anomalously unlucky because, once again, the Foundation can't help but do things to just amputate every part of it, because it accidentally hurts it all the time. So that's kind of odd. But anyway, it approaches this very, very dry porridge. Here's porridge again. I'm gonna have to ask to staffer when I send a message like, what the hell is this porridge thing? So the article kind of approaches this dry humor in its reserved clinical tone, but it never really reaches past kind of starting out with that. Like, it kind of gets to amusement, but not really, because like I said, there's a lot of fucked up things going on in here. So it never really achieves this dry humor that it feels like it's trying to get to. But yeah, so there's some interesting commentary on here, like, the ethics of this situation. Obviously, the Foundation trying to figure out if something is anomalous or not. Like, what's the line, And so there's a couple of more interesting points here if we go to the author discussion. The author tells us that this is an attempt to be sort of the, what do they say, the potential yin to Mr. Fish's yang. And I think everybody most knows what Mr. Fish is and knows that article pretty well. But I think this approach works for Mr. Fish because it's so alarming and obviously anomalous, it being a person with a fish head, yet otherwise so normal. And this is the inverse, and it's the worst way to inverse that in a way that does not work. So instead of that, it's something that is not evidently anomalous and is also very normal. So whereas Mr. Fish can't be explained, this can, and is just an unfortunate pig that someone sewed the skin of a dead man face onto. So I think that the person is trying to get this sort of Mr. Fish, vibe and feeling, but it just lacks everything that makes that work for Mr. Fish. There's a couple of really good comments here that I agree with. Cathardarstrix says, I know the Foundation is varying degrees of cold and or cruel, but I wouldn't ever characterize them as negligent or careless like they are in this article, which is another thing. This is an author who doesn't care about, thinking and maybe respecting is a word we could use. The character of the Foundation. I mean, it's like making an idiot of Darth Vader. I mean, you just don't do that. I mean, the whole point of Darth Vader is that he's competent, and frightening, and that's why he's an effective villain, and that's why he's an effective character. If he's suddenly just ridiculously stupid, that doesn't make him Darth Vader anymore. And so that kind of is what this author has to do in this article in order to make it work. And I'll actually go back to last week where this author did the exact same thing with their tidal wave article, where they had to make the Foundation, they had to pigeonhole the Foundation to this really awkward space of really like murderously sadistic or completely unbelievably incompetent in order to make that article work. And really the same thing is true here. So it seems as though the author doesn't really care. This is a smart author, I can tell. I'm a big fan of this author's podcast, and this author has a lot of insight and philosophical depth when they talk about writing, for example. So, it makes me think that the author just doesn't care that much. It's not that the author doesn't recognize these things. And then also Ethagon's comment is good. I like this concept more than the execution. Senor Fantastic making a mister that's just a non-anomalous pig with a face attached to it fits perfectly, but I knew what would happen in the tests even before I looked at them. Admittedly, I don't know how best to go about this, but I think this would work better if it focused just on the part of this being a non-anomalous Mr. knockoff rather than the Foundation stumbling over missing anomalous properties. So once again, that sort of incorporates, I think where this article really, really misses it is it decides to kind of turn towards the Foundation's treatment of this thing as opposed to the thing itself. And runs into a lot of problems when it does that. So, I mean, do I recommend this one? I mean, not really. I think the rating is pretty appropriate for this. I wouldn't want to go back and read this again just because, like I said, it was a little difficult to read. Just the Foundation, just, outright abusing an animal like this. So, I don't think you'll get much from this article. Even the picture doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. It just tries to be another article. It tries to be Mr. Fish, and it doesn't know what it's doing. That's really the bottom line on this article. So, no, I don't recommend this article. All right, skipping these translations, let's go to SCP 570. This one is written by, we'll get to that later. This is the collective designation for the densest concentration of thaumaturgical residue known to the Foundation. That is an excellent anomaly. That is an above average anomaly. That's awesome. That's so cool. And then really that's the best part of the article, in my opinion. It really goes downhill. So very quickly after that, we're introduced to the main two forces in this, which are the Coca-Cola Company and the Pepsi Cola Company. And so we kind of get a lot of ritualistic, a lot of thaumaturgic involvement in these, and you kind of get the idea that they were sort of having a magic war with one another. I think that's the name of the article is Ritual Cola Wars or something like that. So it's a little corny, I think, of a direction to take that. If you would have told me that this sentence, which is an amazing sentence, an amazing anomaly, goes into this direction, I think it's probably one of the worst directions you could have taken that into. We additionally get introduction of the noosphere with some noospheric technobabble. I'm not sure why the noosphere always has to have technobabble going on with it. But, there's some interesting moments in this. Obviously this recontextualizes the whole addictive and unhealthy aspects of soft drinks. It makes sense that corporations in a world like this would eventually tap into some sort of thaumaturgical warfare. These companies have their own naval fleets and fortresses. So, there are some interesting things going on here for sure. They really aren't all that far-fetched. It's just barely a hyperbole from what currently exists. And then so we get to the addendum, which obviously, as you can see, is the meat of the article. This is a really bad decision to cast each of these in either red or blue text corresponding to the Coca-Cola Company or to the Pepsi Company. The author tries to do that because they want to be clear about which company is doing what. The blue is when Pepsi does something, and the red is when Coke does something. But that's kind of silly because it's very clear if you just read, who's doing what. You don't really need the colors to tell you that, and in fact, you shouldn't have the colors tell you that. This should be something that the actual writing conveys sufficiently enough on its own, and thank goodness that it does. But once again, it just makes this to be kind of a perplexing decision on the part of the author. It almost seems as though they just couldn't get away from they're very giddy to put this color coordination thing in here because Coke is red and Pepsi is blue. So it comes off as really shoddy, meaningless decisions, meaningless extra effort and extra work for the eyes of the reader. There's a couple of bits of unpolished prose here that I think need some help. Although its origins can be traced back to 1975 at the earliest, well, that's kind of a redundant thing to say. You don't need the phrase at the earliest because you just said that at its origins. Those two things mean the same thing, essentially, so I don't know why you have both of those in there. That's just a bad move. But yeah, so the author really tips their desire to be very flashy with this, just a lot of pizzazz, just desperate to give some visual appeal to this when unfortunately probably should be done by the text itself. So I just really unfortunately think this is a very, very bad decision on the author. Anyway, so on the whole, I think this is a fantastic idea given to the absolute worst setting and context. It's like giving $1 million to a meth addict. It's a shame to see this great idea for an anomaly go in this direction and be preoccupied by these things, with these companies, and to, really unfortunately sort of slum the idea into a corporate battle between Pepsi and Coke. I can't recommend this article. It does it's a little touch and go throughout the whole thing, and then we get to this this transcription at the end. The interview makes this so bad. And you can read the thing if you want to, but you can also just look at the end. The end is always a very easy way to know where this is gonna go. Or rather, it's really an easy way to really definitively see just how just where the mind of the author is. How interested they are in writing good dialogue, or in this case, how interested they are to end on a punchline, or bring out qualities of, the dialogue, the foundation, the characters that, would be fine right at home at something like Spaceballs, just absolutely, zany kind of stuff. So, yeah, you didn't tell us shit we didn't already know, and I pissed off a wizard. I'll be leaving now. Fine, you know what? Fine. I mean, that's just kind of a really dorky way to end an article and also a log. Just amazing. So let's take a look at a line that I think characterizes the work very well. I didn't expect you guys' rivalry to run this deep. You work for soda companies. So, I mean, if you're the typical SCP reader and voter, you probably love this. I think this is, immediately bad. Just a really, the person should have resisted their urge to make this into an SCP. So, I can't recommend this article. People tend to like it, once again. If you do, hey, we're kind of dumb, the Foundation's kind of stupid, the dialogue is pucky and plinky, and it's basically what Star-Lord or... what who's that guy? Iron Man, would say to one another in a MCU dialogue. Basically, people in the SCP love that shit. They'll eat it up, and that's really why we see stuff like this all the time. If this was not incentivized, if authors didn't have an incentive for writing this way, they would have stopped by now. But unfortunately, the voting body at the SCP that likes to define what is good writing, they don't know what good writing is. This is really bad writing. So unfortunately, that's something that we have to see over and over and over again by people who can't write very well at all. And unfortunately, Fishish is the author. I think that's probably one of the worst offenders when it comes to doing this over and over again for the SCP Wiki, just taking a shit on the genre, taking a shit on everything that made it good, and deciding that they'll just do whatever they want so that they can make the article that they want, because it's really all about them. It's not really about the art form. So there's a couple of good comments here that I'd like to take a look at. Uranium Empire is really good comment that I agree with. So let's read these. The SCP banks its comedy onto the soda rivalry, which would be the punchline anywhere else. By the time we get to the logs, it's already played out the absurdity of soda companies fielding magic armies, and I'm left with something that feels like it goes on for way too long. And of course, it does this because the author is trying to be funny. The author is trying to be cute. The author thinks that dialogue, that making zany, goofy dialogue can carry this idea farther, which it cannot. It doesn't help that the joke probably wouldn't have been funny to me even if it were better paced, and of course a random day concurs with the above. The dialogue is also just not funny, and the article would be better off without it. Well, don't tell the author that. That's really what they were designing this whole article to get to, in my opinion. We have really dumb comments from Jack Waltz and Bread Tyrant, who completely miss anything but the most bubblegum headed opportunities to talk about things. Absolutely useless comments that have nothing to do with anything. Dr. Chandra has something really good to say. I've said before that I prefer SCPs where the anomalies are central to the narrative, which obviously isn't the case here, since I'm not even sure what this thaumaturgical residue is, what it does, or even how it's contained. That's a really, I mean, this person ended up liking it, obviously. But yeah, that's a really great point. I mean, it kind of is my big thing with the article, which is that this is pretty Neo Foundation. It's not explicitly Neo Foundation because it doesn't make the Foundation into total idiots. Although from the dialogue here, you would think that these people are pretty dumb. But one thing that it does that's very Neo Foundation is it takes a really, really great starting point, like a really fantastic anomaly, and just immediately runs it off of a cliff, for the sake of laughs, doing it for the vine, doing it for the lulz. That's really what this author's primary interest is, I would say, way more than writing well. They want to write effectively, and so that's just the school of thought that it is, and I guess their 47 is worth it to them. So I cannot recommend this article. I think it's easily in the bottom tier this week. I think it's quite awful, actually. All right, so that was June 11th. So we are going to move on. Let's take a little bit of a break. We're about an hour and 41 in. I think we'll get through with this at a pretty decent time. Try not to go too detailed here, but just a few more, really. But let's take a little bit of a break, a little intermission. We typically do these on our Friday night streams, which are gauntlets. It gives me an opportunity to refill my glass. As you can see, it's quite empty. So let's take maybe 5 minutes, not long. I'll go get a refill, and we'll pick it up then. Oi, it's me. I'm looking rough, by the way. Had COVID, so I don't really care. Wow. All right. Thanks for sticking around. We're back, and we'll get to it. So, holy shit, where do we leave off? 570? That was a bad one. We did the 12th, and now it's me again with all these. So SCP 6259. Let's see what this one is doing. Okay. Yeah, this one is a species. Excuse me, a species of amphibious creatures that are similar, that are of similar size and shape to a human eyeball, with a single orifice where the human pupil would be, and a tail resembling the optic nerve. A little bit of a run-on, but basically it's a tadpole, and the the fin of the tadpole is the optic nerve, and the body of the tadpole is an eye. And just to make it, like, I guess, a little more interesting, these things can basically perform nuclear fusion and shoot plasma laser beams out of their eyes at things. So, basically, yeah, that's it. The Foundation understands as much, and then attempts very desperately to turn these guys into an alternative energy source. You know, basically making them into a little bit of a nuclear energy source. So, yeah, it's kind of got this little environmental sort of angle to it, but it doesn't really make a lot of sense, because is it really an alternative energy source if you are still using what are really, carbon, organisms? I mean, so, fossil fuels, largely come from, dead carbon-based organisms, right? And so I don't really know if this is an excellent alternative energy source. Just trying to think like what the Foundation was thinking. If you're basically just trying to plug the same thing in as your battery, which is just an organic, carbon-based life form. The only difference is that these are alive, and the other ones are obviously very long since dead. And so it just seems like a pretty bad idea. I can't imagine anyone who is like relatively, even mildly, competent, thinking that the direction we should go in with this anomaly that we've discovered is to try to harvest it for a perpetual and alternative energy source. It almost seems as though these tadpoles are, I mean, the anomaly doesn't make any sense, it's just so confused. A tadpole that is an eye, and there's an optic nerve that it uses as a fin, and it can do nuclear fusion. The whole thing seems to just be inexplicably combined in order is so that the plot can do what it wants to do. That's really the only reason any of these anomalous attributes exist, is because the plot wants them to be there. Okay, so the whole thing feels very jerry-rigged, you have things like it immediately blowing up when they try to do something. This senior researcher is saying we shouldn't do this because it's not safe, and then immediately ignoring that, the rest of the article just picks up right where this left off and ignores this, and they try to continue to do this, try to continue to harness energy from it. So, unfortunately, it makes this article, as you can tell, hopefully by now, makes the Foundation into kind of morons in order to do what it wants to do. And then at some point, the researcher who has an emotional bond with one of these things, takes out their eyeball so that they can put in this tadpole eye thing and like run away with it, basically enact a containment breach because they've come to love their research subject matter. So this is kind of a tired thing. We see this all the time where a researcher gets emotionally attached to whatever it is they're supposed to be, distantly, coldly sort of researching. And once again, though, we see all the elements of why this anomaly is constructed the way it is, just so effortlessly and seamlessly fit into the convenience that the author wants to be there so that the article can progress. It's very clear in retrospect that the whole anomaly is shaped like an eye so that one of the researchers can hide it as one of their eyes. There's just a little heavy-handed of the environmentalism thing here. Obviously, it's not a bad thing. It comes off as very unpolished, a very, very poor representation of that school of thinking and what is interesting about that school of thinking. There's just a lot of strange things about this. And then to add to the preachy environmentalism thing here, these things end up eating methane gas. So they basically eat farts, which is a big deal. Big deal in that circle of thinking. So, it tries to comment on the collision of professionalism and emotional connection that we know is possible between an anomaly and a researcher, but there's really a poor display of professionalism here to begin with on the part of the Foundation. And the characters here are just so flat and so uninviting that the effect is lost to a sense of just numb repetition from the author. It's just the testing logs here don't escalate anything. They go into the same thing over and over again. The protagonist is an emotionally sterile person, basically turns into Cyclops from X-Men when they put this ocular tadpole thing into its eye that can shoot lasers, so basically you become Cyclops. So anyway, this is the first article. If we look down at the comments, we'd see that the author, this is their first. So, that's nice to see. I'm glad that it's successful and wish the author well. But this is not a strong first showing, in my opinion. This author has a lot to learn, but I do encourage the author and look forward to watching them learn. Okay. Next, we get into the rest of the day. On the 13th is people occupying Series 4 slots. So somebody deleted some articles, I guess. And so anytime you have, older numbers like this 570 or these Series 4s open up, typically what you get is a really, really bad entry. And the reason is because people are so competitive. They're so excited. And they're so distracted by the little meaningless, superficial, number-based decorations that they can kind of get, and an older slot is one of those things to these people. It's not worth it to them to just have the spot just in case. I happen to have something here and it's ready for release, and oh, look at that! Oh my gosh, let me put it here. Instead, once they see that these slots are opened up, people will just hastily put whatever that they have in there in an attempt to claim that spot and hopefully keep it. So the result of that is typically you get really rushed products. You get, typically pretty bad. It's not always the case, but for example, in SCP-570 is the case, and we're about to see a few more. So let's get into SCP-3371. I didn't think this one was very bad. This is a pretty interesting idea with a nice creepy factor. Basically, it's like somebody who is going around taking pictures inside of people's homes. It's kind of like the Google Map car, but if it was somehow able to go inside of your own home and collect a bunch of photos, that it shouldn't be able to collect. So the Foundation kind of starts to notice this, and so obviously it's got this really creepy sort of like there but not there feeling and atmosphere to it. It's not like this thing is coming in and like hurting you. It's just kind of taking pictures. So it meshes some really disturbing stalker-ish plus like doxer vibes and mixes it with this enabler device of an anti-meme. So anytime you paste an anti-meme onto something like that, obviously it makes it more complicated and allows it to do the things it's doing without being detected. So, I hate to see the anti-meme used in that way. I mean, most of the time it's used in the same way that those characters from Harry Potter use their little cloak that makes them invisible. That's like 9 out of 10 times what you see people using anti-memes for when they can be used in more creative and inventive, imaginative ways. That's not to say that use of it can't be good. I think it's SCP-6225 or something like that. That's Stormbreath's article recently about that murder mystery. That one used anti-meme as sort of a cloaking device too. That one did a really, really, really good job with that. Most of the time, it's not that way. I think it's pretty lazy here. Just nothing that we haven't seen. I mean, it's just such an obvious inclusion. It's sort of like going to every restaurant and they've bought McDonald's fries to serve you as their own. It's just like, okay, just try to change it up just a little bit. Don't just verbatim plop down what everybody else is doing. So, yeah, I think ultimately the article carefully kind of explores this idea and how it is that you can capture it, which of course is a big problem because the anti-meme, no one can really kind of put a finger on it, and so they eventually turn towards the surveillance footage and explain it that way, that there's some sort of connection with the companies that are making these security systems, and that the anomaly is somehow native and baked into this lineage of security systems, and therefore these cameras that are having a hard time capturing this object. But in that way, the article kind of leaves its own premise behind, in that a lot of these initial places we saw the anomaly happen, like in these homes, these aren't going to probably have the security camera systems that we eventually kind of hone in on later in the article. So it kind of leaves those things behind, whether that's a logic thing or even just a tonal thing. Let's say the logic works out. Just tone-wise, atmosphere-wise, it sort of takes a turn into a site foundation and doesn't really go back to where I think it was more effective, which is dealing with, the everyday person in their own home. And then it also does the same thing. It really tries to escalate itself and really undoes itself in the process. So one of the things I said earlier was that what's so effective and creepy about this anomaly as an idea is because this thing is just kind of sitting there. It's not trying to attack you. It doesn't seem to have a capacity or capability of like physically injuring you or whatever. It really derives a lot of its creepiness from its sort of being kind of there and kind of not, right? In fact, if it were to reach out and grab you and, that would probably diminish the originality and the subtlety, that's going into making this a creepy thing. Well, by the end, the author decides that it's going to do that it actually takes somebody and it like steals somebody away. So I think that kind of obviously it's attempting to one up the stakes and add some more tension to the article, but it undoes what I think was the strength of the anomaly and really saps all the creepiness out from it. So in order to push it into more interesting territory, the author violates sort of the logic that they've set up. And so we sort of have a non-ending here with that statement that shows up a lot, like further research is pending type of thing, where it's here Site 119 has yet to make an official comment regarding these disappearances. Anytime you see that 9 out of 10 times, they don't need to be there. This is somebody just basically, putting something at the end. It would 9 out of 10 times, the ending would be more punctuated, be stronger, it'd be more of a hit if you didn't have that. So, for example, if you just want to apply that to this article, if you look at it, 5 Foundation notebooks are taken, anomalies are gone, the agent is gone, missing since the most recent activity spike. If you ended it there, it'd be a more powerful ending than you adding this tail end thing, which is not necessary, which a lot of authors on the wiki just kind of do because they feel like there needs to be some retrospective statement there. But it's just probably the most common pacing error at the end of an article that I see on a common basis. I mean, it's just take it out. It doesn't need to be there. It doesn't actually contribute anything. Like literally in this case, like you've told me that no one said anything. Like I don't really think you have to put that in there. It's like calling me on the phone to tell me that you have nothing to say. It's like, okay, well, and it just does every time. Every time, if you just notice this from now on, every time there's an ending like this where it says, further testing is pending, or they have yet to make an official comment regarding these things, or containment procedures are being reworked. Just take it away. Just imagine like it's not there. And every single time, 9 out of 10 times, let's say, the ending that would be the ending is better. It's sharper. It punches harder. It stays with you longer. This is just dampening the whole thing. Just dampens the whole thing. So, this is a decent composition. It's not without some clinical shoddiness, unfortunately. Walls mentioned that the camera in hallway 13A was where he saw the unidentified individual. That shouldn't be that way. This Walls saw the individual in 13A. You don't need to. This is a very, very weird way to put that thought. And then when we go to the actual authors, we find out that it took 3 people to put this together. Jack Waltz, Fishish, and Jackal related. I think it's telling that these people saved this slot and then never came back to it. Because once again, it was all about just getting this slot. It was the rush of getting a Series 4. They completely forgot about it. And unfortunately, that's the only... this was my spot. I guess. Maybe Jack Dragon was part of this too. Maybe it took 4 people to write this. I don't know. But yeah, there's absolutely zero meaningful discussion on this article. My guess is that this was probably rushed out to grab that Series 4 slot. I think it's a decent short read. It's certainly nothing amazing or lasting. I've seen much worse. Huh? But yeah, the comment section is pretty telling. I mean, the only thing is just the authors shooting the shit with themselves about getting this slot. So, should you read it? I mean, yeah, go read it. It's not terrible. All right, the next Series 4 that was rushed into, is this one. And then this one I think is was one of the harder articles to finish in this week. And the reason is because when this first started off, I thought this was an excellent start. And the anomaly here I think is excellent. It's really great. In fact, we're doing a statue con right now for the magazine. So I read this and I thought, damn, I was like, wow, I'd love to have this as an entry. I thought this would be so cool. Why can't I have this as an entry in the contest? And of course, by the time I finished the article, I was so happy that this is on the SCP Wiki. If this had been an entry in the magazine contest that we're doing about statues, I would have seriously questioned my life. Because this is the sort of stuff that we're hoping to try to get away from when it comes to the things that we're doing, at Config Magazine and the writing aesthetics that we're trying to recapture. So let me tell you what I mean about this. So, it's a statue that's thinking. They give it some good treatment. They kind of give it a little bit of a temporal strangeness to it, and give it some physical attributes that are anomalous. It's physically immovable, for example. Very simple and effective, with very mild and sort of professionally restrained treatment going into the anomaly here. And then all of this is pooped upon very, very quickly. The author decides to turn this all into a setup for a very bad, very corny, very unimaginative, very disappointing joke. Everything in the article is undercut by the desire to be cutesy and funny, and it reminds me of the sort of floppy humor plaguing things like the Star Wars sequel trilogy, where it's constantly tripping over itself, unable to make its characters meaningful or convincing, unable to make the dialogue and the plot feel natural and the people feel natural by this really almost obsessive, completely misfiring sort of habit of making things as dumb-headed and as shallow as possible. So we have this abysmal Neo-Lol Foundation article by the end of it. I'll go ahead and ruin it for you because it's just so bad. The article's talking about the statue who's just sitting there. No one can move it around. And then, of course, there's an incident log, and basically the statue stands up, looks at the camera, and says, "Sorry, I had to think about some stuff," and walks away from the frame. And then, of course, it performs the same ending error that I just told you about again. Where this doesn't even need to be here, So, this is pretty typical. I mean, obviously it's well liked. This is one of the most depressing things that I see on a routine basis. It makes me want to just quit, honestly, to see something like this do very well. I mean, I don't really give a shit about upvotes, obviously, but the problem that I have with this is that those upvotes are signals to authors, telling them, what works and what people like, right? And so what that means is that this kind of writing that we see here in this article is reinforced because of something like this' success. So, I think this article is a very good reason to be disappointed in the wiki. If we look at the authors, this is again the two authors who were immediately dumping their articles, and the last one to get the previous Series 4 slot. This person thinks that this is a long overdue collab, and this person thinks that they ball. They don't ball. This is a god-awful article, and of course it's this author again, Fishish, who, once again, I said last time, is pretty identifiable in my opinion for somebody who doesn't understand the genre that they write in, who will do whatever it takes to, take the direction of the writing here, and something like the standards of the wiki and the artfulness of the genre, and just turn it into a blooper reel. This is like watching a TV show and they left a blooper in. That's what this is. It's not good writing at all. So it's the same two authors as the immediately previous entry, likely rushed out. It kind of feels like diarrhea in order to claim this Series 4 slot. I mean, these, if you look at the feed, these are literally posted. What was it? I think a couple of minutes. Yeah, this is literally posted 1 minute after the last one. So, I mean, this is not very, effortful stuff. This is people just taking the easiest, the cheapest, the dumbest, the most thoughtless, the least talented route they can possibly do to get a Series 4 slot, but also to, make a complete embarrassment out of the wiki. This article would be a really good one to add into some sort of museum that details the decline of the SCP Wiki's standards. Real bad, real bad. If you look at the comment section, which I guess we will, most of it is what you would expect for an article that is this content list that's this bad. It's bot level stuff, you know, not anything really meaningful, indicating that the people don't really understand that this is not good writing. I think there's actually a couple of comments here of people expressing how I feel. So you know, which typically I think that no one would say, but I was surprised to see I think a few people say something that I felt was good. This is one. Sorry, I didn't really find this funny. Little to no build up to a joke that could be seen from a mile away. That just made me groan. It's a bad joke, but it falls short of that stack overflow that turns it from unfunny to hilarious. That's really, really well said. And it's just, you know, a little bit of hope. I mean, once again, just someone like Plague PJP, this is right up their alley. You know, they're all about just turning writing on this project into, you know, the most the most ridiculous, the dumbest possible form that it can take. Here's another comment that I thought was good. I think this concept has a lot of potential. This article is foregoing capitalizing on for the sake of a single joke that I don't find funny enough to upvote. Yes, I think that's really, really good. Yeah, so this made me imagine a version of this where the statue gets really pissed off that people keep fucking with him while he's trying to think. Now that's the article I wish I read. So this person, Uncanny Clown, has not only expressed and captured what it is about this article that's just so horribly, horribly bad, but has owned the authors. They, in this comment, take the idea into, you know, more substantive, more meaningful, more talented of a direction than these authors could. And there's two of them. There's two authors here. It took two authors to do this. This is like a screwing in a light bulb joke. How many authors does it take to screw in a light bulb? Well, it takes two of these guys to make a really, really dumb joke. I mean, you know, it's a good thing it's not a J. I mean, usually I would say, oh, this should be a J, but it's a good thing it's not because it's completely unfunny. It's shocking to me that people think this is good. This is the least imaginative, least talented direction you can possibly go with this setup. This should be and would be laughed out of any respectable writer's room, period. But that's really the state of the SCP Wiki. You know, I read every single article that comes out of this wiki. Some closer than others. The SCP Wiki doesn't get any worse than this. And the reason why this is so bad, more bad, this is way, way worse for the wiki than a shitty article that, like, you know, barely has an idea and barely has clinical tone polish. And it's because of this. Because this article is doing more damage to the SCP Wiki than a shitty article that's translated that barely, you know, whatever. Because this is taken to be good. That's incredibly damaging. This is awful. The irony here is that for using the quintessential image of deep thinking, these authors found a way to avoid doing that completely. You know, what the authors have done here, they've avoided, they've dodged even having to come up with anything in regards to what the statue could be thinking. That's how lazy this writing is. They don't have to go, sorry, I had to think about some stuff. That's it. They don't have to go into what it was trying to think about even. That's how lazy this is. That's how reliant it is upon a gimmick. This article is a parasitic chlamydia that is ruining the reputation of the writing on the SCP Wiki. And it's all doing so for the sake of being well received over some dumb joke. It's completely lost sight of writing well. There's no good writing in this article, period, whatsoever. Except for the very first thing it tries to introduce about the statue. That's it. So, hate to go off on this thing. I'm a huge fan of Jack Waltz. I just hate to see what happens when he hangs out with the likes of Fishish, who, once again, look back to the April Fool's articles that Fishish did. I don't think I've seen someone who's more intent on reducing the standards and tastes and vibe of the SCP Wiki to, the standards and compositional level of a Saturday paper cartoon panel. That's about what you're getting with this. This literally is a what is it? Marmaduke? Yeah, Marmaduke. Like, I'm sorry, but the comics that show up in your Saturday paper are better than this. This is awful. This is so bad. And this is supposed to be a writing site. That's what's sad about this. This is pathetic writing. And then I think just to put the cherry on top, let's do this. 3691. Sorry. Yeah, they titled this one "The Thinking Man's SCP," which I guess is the joke. If I had to guess from that SCP, I would say that these people are, maybe they graduated middle school. I don't know. Anyways, there's that one. Absolutely terrible article, and it is no coincidence that it is one of the more successful ones this week. That's just the way the SCP Wiki works. All right, so this one is a SCP 3950. Is this mine? I don't have notes on this one. Yeah, it is. So this is the last one. Let's see if I have notes on this one. Yeah, okay. Yeah, this one is really, really messed up. Really, really good. Really good. I can't remember who wrote this one. But this was one that I hope and I think was ready and just so happened to get this Series 4 slot. This is a really, really good SCP. So it's basically this young humanoid female who they think, in which there's this very large calcified fetus that's like huge. And so basically they go in and try to figure out what it is through some medical procedures. And when they get in there, they discover that it's not really as dead as they thought it was, and it wasn't really what they thought it was. And so there's some very interesting concepts going on here. So I can never pronounce it, but those Russian dolls that fit into one another? It starts with like a, Matryoshka doll. That's really what this SCP is based on. That's really the core concept that the author kind of plays with and kind of stretches and breaks and then reties together. And there's some very interesting cyclical treatments going on here with the anomaly. Kind of reminds me of some things that SD Locke has done with like Jennifer and the Pig over and over again, kind of SCP. It kind of has some of those vibes. But it's just a really, really, really great article. It's written very professionally. The author has a good grasp, does a lot of proper treatment, respectful treatment of things like medical concepts. Clearly has done some research in order to enact this SCP in stark contrast to the one we just read. Just really, really shocking, really disturbing, and is one of those SCPs that the questions that it raises are more interesting than what would happen if you were given any answers. So it just is an escalation of questions that really keeps on chugging until the very end, and it's just a very satisfying read. This is a highly sophisticated article by Aftokrator, I guess, who I'm starting to be a pretty big fan of, because I think we read a few of theirs over the past weeks. Really, really excellent SCP. So check that one out. I highly recommend that one. It's enough to restore your faith in the SCP Wiki after having immediately read SCP 3691, which does not deserve that designation number. Not that those numbers mean anything more than any other designation number, but just given that people wanted highly to occupy that space, can't believe it. Just pathetic. All right, but anyway, SCP-3950 is an excellent article. I kind of want to see what people say about it, honestly. It's got a good rating for itself, so happy to see this as well. Appreciated. Yeah, Jack Waltz, who once again I'm a big fan of. It just when Jack Waltz happens to hang out with certain people, he gets a lot worse. Yeah, Eternal Rebirth. Started as a response to the prompt belly button horror and rapidly progressed to funny organic. I don't know about funny. Yeah, I don't get what the final section is implying, but there was some awful shit either way. This is a really good article. Excellent job. All right, and then a couple more for me. I think we're done after this. So the 15th of June, so SCP-6607. All right, so this article is not good at all. This is a really sad article to try to read through. Very difficult. So there are a few really interesting things about this. So the idea of generating large quantities of this certain type of energy, which basically is produced when bargains are made with demonic entities, so like sacrifices, rituals, deals with the devil kind of stuff, gives off a certain specific type of energy. And yeah, so that's a really cool idea in this article. But I think that's really, once again, unfortunately, we have so many articles that really do a great job of identifying an anomaly, and then they just don't know what to do with it. It's like taking a really great wine, let's say, very expensive, very exclusive, very professionally made wine, and just dumping it into the pan so that you can just cook it. Like people use cheap wines to cook with because you don't want to ruin something that has that much, investment and effort into it. It's like wrecking a Ferrari or something. If you're going to wreck something, wreck, a Geo or something like that. Anyway, so there's a few problems that I have here. I have a big problem with this rainbow thing here, but I'm just going to ignore that. I'll write a blog post about that at some point. It's basically, just to say it in a sentence or two, ask yourself why shows like Breaking Bad or shows like Better Call Saul, or take whatever great show you like. Let's just take Breaking Bad. Let's ask a question. Why doesn't Breaking Bad have its characters in pride color jackets? Why not? Is it because the people in the show aren't pro LGBTQ? I doubt it. I think the people in the show are probably pro LGBTQ. Is the writer of Breaking Bad, or the writers of Breaking Bad and the producer and the director, are they bigots? Are they transphobes? Probably not. Okay. Does them not having Walter White wear a pride color jacket in a few of their episodes mean that the show is not LGBTQ friendly? No, that doesn't make any sense. Why wouldn't someone want to put, even if they were pro LGBTQ, why wouldn't someone want to put Walter White into a pride color jacket for a few episodes? Why not? If you can answer that question, then you understand why I don't appreciate this rainbow thing here. And it's not for any, I don't have any animus towards LGBTQ. I am LGBTQ. It's the same reason why if the producers suddenly wanted Walter White to wear an LGBTQ pride color jacket in an episode of Breaking Bad, that probably would do bad things to the show's artistic integrity. Okay? It probably would seem out of place, and at some point it would be somebody preferring to make their own political statements over the art form. Does that make sense? That's why this stuff bothers me. It doesn't bother me that you put this at the top of the page, right? I'm not one of those guys, right? If you go to the home page and you want to put a logo up top on the top of the SCP, that's fine. I don't really care to make an argument about immersion here because you've got social media buttons here. What's the point? For new users, I mean, none of this is totally immersive. The immersion, the art form, takes place within the documentation, right? It takes place within the document. So as soon as Esoterica here, the author, has decided that they want to kind of be extra cool, you know, they want to kind of up the ante, push it one step further, be a little cooler than other people when it comes to their pride, and they've put it in their article like this. That's like Walter White wearing a pride jacket on one episode of Breaking Bad, you know. And the reason why, I'll just go ahead and answer my own questions. The reason why that's not there is because as nice of a gesture as it might be, as positive, as progressive, as needed of attention giving, and as sort of ethical political statements that may come from that, that's not really the point of what's happening here. The point is that we have to maintain the integrity of the show. You have to maintain the integrity of the art form. And when you throw Walter White into or Jesse Pinkman into a pride jacket for a few episodes that happened to be made in June, you compromise the entire show for that decision. And so that's what the authors are doing here. And so it's very, very clear that they don't respect the art form that they're trying to write in. Okay? If you had a production team who decided to put all the characters in pride color jackets for a few episodes that were filmed in June, they would, by definition, have less care for the art, for the thing they're trying to create, than they would their political expressions, right? And so that's what this is. Okay, and I'm not a bad guy, okay? It's not a bad thing if you want to make a statement like this. There are places where you can make that statement, and we've had years-long discussions about that being right here, okay? When you put it into the document, you know, that's making Walter White wear a pride jacket, okay, for an episode or two. So some people don't care about that. I certainly would. If I was watching it, I'd be like, okay, well, that's great. You know, I'm all for that, but what is it doing in the show? Obviously, people don't think that here at the SCP Wiki. So, you know, ask yourself, you know, what is the SCP Wiki about? Is it about writing? Is it about the art form that it's participatory in? It's arguable. And then something else that's really strange here is there's really two things that's strange about this. We have a secondary class, Girdle, and there is a footnote that tries to explain that. And for some reason, that footnote comes after the Special Containment Procedures header. Man, I like this background music, but it just has very long moments of silence. Very strange. So you should be able, this is actually text. If you look at the screen I'm highlighting, you can actually put a footnote after what you type here as the secondary class. So I don't know why this footnote wouldn't be right there. Instead, it's here, which is a really strange place to put it. And then this also dips into what I think are some serious problems with the SCP Wiki as well, which is that it's really, the whole thing is art by bedazzlement. It's effort by bedazzlement. It's nothing substantial about this. So the secondary class of Girdle here means, as we see in the footnote, the item is explainable using anomalous science. There's so much confusion in that statement. It baffles my mind. There's no better proof that the SCP Wiki is embroiled in a logic of bedazzlement where nothing really has to make sense. It's not really about making sense. It's not really about good writing. It's not really about doing justice to, let's say, the art form. It just has to sound cool. It just has to look cool if you make this into a rainbow ACS. That's really what the SCP Wiki is concerned with more than anything, most of it. Similar to a place like Hollywood. You know, any care or concern for something being like good quality, is upstaged at the core by what can be offered as new as and exciting, or maybe get you some money or upvotes or whatever. So let me explain what I mean by how strange this is. If it has to be explainable by anomalous science, then it isn't explainable. If the science is anomalous, then it isn't science. And if there is a science about it, something that's anomalous, it's not anomalous. It's impossible to have a science of the anomalous. That's what anomaly means. If it's a science, then it isn't anomalous. Literally everything in the SCP Wiki could have this designation girdle, because all anomalies are somewhat explained in the documentation to an extent by something like a methodological approach to the anomaly. All of this is completely blown past so that the author can include just another of what now seem like hundreds of useless and look how cool this is object classes and secondary classes on the wiki. It is so apparent and transparently all about style over substance. That's really where we are now. I haven't even gotten to an actual word of the document yet. Okay, and it's very clear this author is either not thinking about these things or doesn't care, has other things in mind, like how cool this secondary class sounds. Cool. Like I said, the anomaly is a great idea, and I think it's off to a great start here. The comprocs are really specific. They're very interesting. And really set up the anomaly very, very well. Footnote 2 is too long, and someone will come back, we'll see, and will criticize the article because of how closely it relates to the second thing you see, the Tartarian resonance energy. But, for what it's worth, like I said, this Faustian sacramental energy, I think, is a pretty fucking cool idea. Really, really cool idea. So, Esoterica is the author of The House That Wasn't There, which Harmony recommended tonight. So, Esoterica has my eye. Pretty cool stuff. There's a really, really impressive thought content going on. But just like this girdle decision and just like this rainbow ACS decision, the author isn't quite at the level yet of treating these things correctly, taking a lot of wrong directions, I think, in the compositional decisionry. So, for example, it goes into a little bit of preachiness. Like, once again, the author can't help themselves. So this footnote talks about how Shell's role in the ongoing climate crisis, which is just so cringy. I mean, it's fine that you think that. That's great. More power to you. It's very, very clear that the author cannot resist the dopamine that they are anticipating by putting what is literally tweets, their own, something that you would see on their Twitter, into their article, so that they can exit it as an art form for a second, so they can tell you what they want to tell you about their political beliefs. Just really, really immature. Unfortunately, really bad decision making with this author when it comes to this kind of stuff. But more than that, there are much, much bigger problems with this article. So it moves into this second phase where it recruits and over-relies on no fewer than 3 other SCPs. There's an entire character here that is from someone else. This is footnote 5, who is an SCP themselves. And these are not mere cross-references. The one is presented as an addendum to this article. So you see the addendum is another SCP. And then once again, we get this other individual who, if we open this log, is cast centrally as a character in this article. And the third is circled and highlighted, pretty heavy-handedly right there too. While we're here, you might as well notice the blocking that the author has included in this discussion transcription is something that you would see on Cartoon Network. Where in reaction to a statement, someone's eye is twitching. It's exactly like cartoon animation. So by this point in the article, the decision, the turn of the boat towards a cliff is complete, and the rest of the article is it just getting to the cliff. It's clear that the author is not interested in meeting the reader who might not have a firm grasp of what these anomalies are or who this person is halfway or any distance for that matter. So given its dependency and derivative nature, the reader who happens to not be very familiar with these is left behind rather quickly. And so the effect of that is most people are going to lose interest in this very quickly. Interest or care as to the developments. And, to be fair, the author, takes a risk. This is a risk that you take when you're an author and you decide to do this, when you over-rely on other anomalies that people may or may not have read. It can pay off very well for those who know those pre-existing elements. Obviously, these are more so done with really, really famous SCPs as opposed to what this author is doing. But for me, just as a reader, it immediately strips any interest and investment out of the read. So anything that had me going here and even here is completely gone here. It's gone. You have given me very little reason to read, and very, very little emotional pull. So it just seems like an inordinate investment for me to continue into this article. And so that the article really lost me here. I'm done. I don't want to go through all this. I don't want to have to go back and read this just so that I understand how you want to place this into your article. I don't know who this person is. You've shown me a nice picture of this person that's, I guess, a little bit interesting, but I don't know who this is and I don't care. And then even reading the actual dialogue, it's pucky. It takes notes from cartoons like we talked about. There's lots of exposition-heavy footnotes all over this thing. All this keeps it from being an approachable read. And then, of course, if you want to do this, you can always go to the bottom of these dialogues and see how they end, because once again, a lot of these articles, they either so effortfully put a point towards that end line of just absolute childishness, total abject immaturity when it comes to author character treatment, situational treatment, scene construction, dialogue, characterization, I think I already said. And then just really bad writing. I mean, these are lines that people thought were good. This author thought that putting the word "I fucking hate the IRS" in a SCP document to end it is a good idea. This is kind of childish, immature sort of treatment for the characterization. The ceiling collapses. I mean, just come on, man. Like, this is straight out of Cartoon Network. I just can't imagine an author who likes that idea, but that happens all the time. In fact, a lot of these articles that deal with like demonic, type articles and anomalies, their authors do that a lot, actually. So ultimately, it's an interesting idea, I think, with some clever real-world sensibilities and on-ramps with all of this mess in here about the IRS, and interesting how the Foundation is tied into that and given sort of these practical sensibilities and concerns. I think there's above average compositional polish and clinical tone here, except for the interview dialogue. But ultimately, this is entirely too self-indulgent of an article that hugs pre-existing situations and modern-day SCP tropes way too tightly, doesn't grab onto anything else to be memorable because of it. There's very little reason the article gives for continuing to read it past just its opening. It's a little bit dry, it's a little bit dull, it's a little bit technically demanding, it's a little off-putting in its compositional decisions, and is just way too average quality of a read for its length. So I will say this, though. This article has a great, great title, so let's look at that real quick. SCP-6607. Infernal Revenue Service is an excellent title, particularly when you tie it in with the demonic sort of character that it goes with. Easily the best part of this article. Which is, I don't know, maybe that's not saying a lot, maybe it is saying a lot, but, That title kicks ass. There's no doubt about that. But the article, I don't know. I guess read it if you have time. It really was nothing special in my opinion. All right, the very last one, and then we'll be done, is SCP-6142. This article is the best one this week by far. Fuck the rating. This is a excellent article. This is such a fucking good article. In contrast to the immediately previous SCP, this one is very, very engaging. It gives the reader plenty of reason to read it and keep reading. It's refreshing. It's got original concepts, things that I've never seen before. For example, this article deals with retirement in the Foundation and how that can be accommodated and how that can be supplied by the Foundation to its employees, what it looks like for employees once they're in their retirement assignment, the whole idea of a retirement assignment. It introduces some very, very novel ways of thinking about life at the Foundation. There's a very original anomaly going on here about crucifying frogs, an inclination to. It makes a lot of nuance and subtlety, distinction into making this not a compulsion, but sort of an inclination, sort of a diet compulsion. And the article really uses that to really good effect. It's really an unexplored space that not a lot of people have the nuance of thought to even understand exists there. And so the author does just a fantastic job in opening that up and kind of taking us to places that we've never gone conceptually when it comes to these very old ingredients like a compulsion effect. There's an original character here that's not recycled or prepackaged from someone else's work, with a whole backstory that we have to be familiar from just to engage with. The character is incredibly engaging as it is. It's somebody who's retiring. You get a lot of emotional saturation here with their life and a forlorn sort of wayward son that this person is trying to connect with again. So we don't have to compare this one to the immediately previously SCP, though, just to notice how good it is. Like I said, the anomaly is incredibly intriguing. It's quite a mystery. It never really answers it for you, which is just an amazing, amazing job of hovering this dissonance in the air and leaving the reader with it almost like a scent that draws you on, and not having to resolve that very well and it still be incredibly satisfying is a stroke of mastery. Not a lot of people can do that. This author does that. It's the sort of anomaly that comes with a dense package of mystery and dread that the reader is almost desperate to understand more about and make more sense of. And like I said, the author sort of uses that to string the person through the rest of the article, but it's the things along the way that you're just so mesmerized by. This emotional opulence of this original character that we're getting to know as we read this. The way that the anomaly is weaved into events that happen, and ultimately how that anomaly comes back at the very, very end and sort of just almost explodes in some what the fuckery that makes the whole thing totally sinister in a way that you didn't see coming due to the whole saccharine nature of the character. It seemed like the article was going to be more preoccupied with just the character play, but then it comes back at the very end and starkly reminds you that this is the Foundation and things can get really fucked up really, really quickly. There's also a lot of great philosophy in this article, sort of like a John Locke from the show Lost tendency explored, that would worry more about what would happen if you didn't do something than worry about what it is that something does. The end is just hair-raising. It's just a bit of horror that ties everything together, but also, once again, introduces more questions than answers. Just a very, very, very effective article. It's extremely well-written, extremely well-paced, excellent characterization. The figure is established very quickly and easily. We get invested emotionally with this character. We feel the gut punch that this character experiences. The excellent use of an anomaly here, excellent use of scenery, excellent direction, excellent just everything. Everything about this is amazing. This is a vastly superior SCP, not only to the one we just looked at, but to most everything posted on the SCP Wiki. Authors like this, and there are very few of them, but authors like this are the only thing holding SCP up, period. Without authors like this, you have the Thinking Statue articles. I mean, the Thinking Statue article got more upvotes than this one. I mean, just let that sit with you for a while. After you read this one and read that one. That's what the SCP Wiki is these days. It is not primarily interested in good writing. My only little nitpick about this article is, once again, this is probably like, I think, the third or fourth this week, and some of them almost in a row, where we get that sort of sunset trope equivalent, walking off into the sunset trope equivalent at SCP, which is this line: revision of containment procedures is underway. It's the same thing we just saw with the other one about a statement has yet to be made. Further testing is pending. Revision of containment procedures is underway. It's the same thing. It's the walking into the sunset trope of the SCP Wiki. It doesn't need to be there. It doesn't really do anything. It just kind of is tired and trite. Imagine taking it away, and the ending is, once again, 9 out of 10 times, it's better if these weren't included. It's more punchy. These things at the end here, they're really non-statements. They don't actually say anything. It's just a way to sort of pad the ending a bit, which is to say that it dampens the effect. Let's just read this. Positioning of the body and the complete nature of his restraints confirmed that crucifixion could not possibly have been performed by Professor Granger himself. End article. This doesn't need to be there. And this author is one of the best. Tanhoney, one of the best. Author of SCP-5000. And a lot of others. They still do this. You know, like people haven't picked up on this as an error yet. So that's what I'm here for. Don't do that. Just take it away. Doesn't need to be there. I do wonder what people say about this one. Return of the King. Yeah, Jack Waltz has good taste. It's funny. Oh well. Yeah, and once again, you can tell from the comments, people are still trying to kind of figure this one out. So, easily the best SCP that I read this week. It's not even close. But yeah, so wow. That's it, though. That's it. So we got through the 16th. Obviously, this Friday, we'll pick up all these. We'll do those too. We'll see if maybe somebody wants to come by. Harmony, maybe. Not sure. And then we did this in about 3 hours. So that's about back to where we like to be. So I'll kind of keep this format. You know, maybe not going as detailed into these things, but definitely I like doing that because we get to point out the things that I think people don't usually see. You know, for example, the sunset into the riding off into the sunset trope, you know, which shows up all the time. Anyways, so I am so happy that we got this done with. This is hanging over my head since Friday. I don't like not doing the things that I have planned to do, but I had COVID. Anyways, we'll see how the rest of the week goes. My whole family has COVID now, so that's nice. So I'm helping take care of everybody. But anyway, we'll see what we can do. Tomorrow is Wednesday, so we'll get back to this on Thursday. We'll kind of pick up where we were last week, maybe listening to a podcast together, to Staffer's podcast with Lux. That's a good one. And then Friday we'll plan to do the gauntlet. So I appreciate you showing up tonight. Hope you all had a nice break while I was not around, and hope to see you again very soon. So take it easy. This has been SCP-CRP, aka Lack of Lepers. Y'all take it easy. Bye-bye.